found it.
Is that your attempt? I gotta ask you, is that your attempt? Because I would vote for that attempt.
That was a
I want that attempt in the podcast. I want that attempt in the podcast, please.
That was the tone shift of our last conversation into the...
Nah, that one was perfect. And action.
Welcome back to the Quiet on Set podcast. I'm Ewan and I'm joined by Kevin Talmans, and today we're talking about Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights. For that review, Kevin won't be around, but Lachlan will be back for the show. But Kevin and I will review a version of Wuthering Heights, just not the most recent one. We're actually looking at the Japanese adaptation from 1988.
Chris Hemsworth is physically back on the big screen after his role in Furiosa, and he stars in Bart Layton's Crime 101, alongside a star-studded cast including Halle Berry, Barry Keoghan, Mark Ruffalo, Monica Barbaro, Corey Hawkins, and Nick Nolte.
I watched the new animated movie from Sony called GOAT. It's basically Zootopia meets basketball. More on that, as well as some classics like All the President's Men, Defending Your Life, and The Last Picture Show in our Spotlight section.
Skip around the show with the time codes below, especially for true Wuthering Heights review in our Spotlight World Cinema section. Ewan mentioned it already, we're talking about the 1988 version of the novel, but what he didn't say is that he watched a bunch of the other version as well from 1939, 92, 2009, and 2011. What a fucking loser, exactly. We'll talk about the book to screen difference as well.
This is the screen, this is the book. Book to screen difference. I'm mouth agape, outraged at the comments of you calling me what I actually am, watching 6 movies of the same story.
Come on, man, you can't fault me.
It's pretty crazy. But before we, kick you out of the show again, Kevin, and I'll have Lachlan step in for the review, let's talk about, some news of the recent sort of few days, because there's been a bit, like something that you ended up messaging me, like, I'm busy right now, I gotta do something, I gotta watch something, and there was the PlayStation State of Play, which I feel like increasingly, we get those tie-overs more and more, where games become movies, movies become games, and there was one thing that stood out to me, that there's a John Wick game, not like style type of game, but really is a John Wick game that is taking place before the movies. It's going to be a single player, third person shooter, like very Hitman-esque. I feel like, that with first like the 007 movie that like IOI is doing. Now you got a Sony game that's in development here, or I don't know if it's actually a Sony game or who the developer is, but yeah, what did you think about like this? Like, have you played the Hitman like type style games, and are you interested in a game in the world of John Wick?
Yeah.
I think I'm back.
For the State of Play, I was intrigued in it because I heard a good few things about it along with the rumors, so it's like, oh, hey, it started off pretty well. It started off with Kena, Scars of Cosmora. I love Kena Breach of Spirits. I adore that game. I adored collecting all the little rods. I was a bit sad the rods weren't in this version, but we get a different, like, tiny cute thing. But the John Wick ones, it is not Hitman. I don't think the John Wick games look like Hitman at all. I would say it's a bit close to a game called Sifu. And honestly, like a lot of people were saying, hey, Sifu in the style or like within the world of John Wick would be pretty cool, and I think they heard that noise from the audience and from people who were like, maybe we should go into that direction. And what is especially making me happy is that Chad Stahelski is involved within the production of this video game, and that just makes me ecstatic. I think Chad Stahelski again is a phenomenal director. The John Wick 4, like John Wick Chapter 4, is, in my opinion, a masterpiece. And again, the inspirations he pulls from is so different compared to David Leitch. I have always thought that Chester Stahelski was a better director than David Leitch. And I do think David Leitch is a better producer than director even. But that hot take aside, really looking forward to John Wick with Keanu Reeves obviously reprising the role as well. a few other things that intrigued me with the state of play was Control Resonant, which is a bit like ironic because the first game, Control, I didn't. Oh, I think I started that game twice and I just never got into it. But watching the gameplay of Control Resonant and like the world, it was like, oh shit! Like I was very much intrigued, especially with the layout and the fact that you can walk on the walls, but the walls become the floor, and that whole thing that is like mind blowing. Like it's a bit Doctor Strange esque in that way. I'm very looking forward to that. Pragmata. I saw footage of the demo from that, and it was received pretty well. Intrigued. 007 First Light. You mentioned it. Also had a story trailer. It looks a bit rough. I cannot lie. I don't know. We'll see what happens with it. But the big announcement of the evening was the God of War trilogy remake. The God of War live action series casting is underway currently, and that cast is just perfectly cast. Especially the guy who plays Thor. My God, a God of War trilogy remake with the gameplay mechanics of the God of War 2018 and Ragnarok would be fantastic. And a lot of people don't notice this, which is God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, one story that is basically one continuous take.
Yeah,
like
is, yeah.
Sure, they're not there. You enter a door, like worlds load, but the actual story is done in a single like string, and that's so impressive to me. And that's why I think those games are like obviously wonderful and like masterpieces as well. So yeah, that was it for me. That's all the news I had brought unless like I just recently read the Winter Olympics games are having a shortage with condoms.
I'm glad you keep us informed.
I
didn't notice.
I mean, you follow the Winter Olympics, so that I thought
the
maybe
thing is,
you wanted
I follow
to know
the
that.
Winter Olympics, which just is like very extensively, which is just like the men and women's hockey. Nothing else. Actually, there's a couple of games going on, 2 of them right now that I'm not cold turkey. I don't know what the expression is, but I'm not watching it right now. I don't have it on a second screen. I watch it afterwards.
Maybe you should.
I know. This right now is demanding my full focus. It's like God of War. There's no takes, no cuts in between here, of course.
I had it a few weeks ago with tennis. Come on, man. You can do it.
You want us to be even, right? Two wrongs make a right.
Exactly.
Kevin. By the way, I think I own the God of War games, the original ones, because they were like every time something is on sale, I'm like, my little grippy fingers go get it, and then I never play any of the games, unless you make me, and it's like a co-op thing, right? We've been recently playing like a game like Haste that has been quite fun to do in co-op. I'm looking forward to this. I never took the time to play even the newer God of War games, and they've looked very intriguing to me. Like
I should say, I haven't played the original.
Right.
I haven't played the original.
But it's also not something that I feel like the basis for the 2018 and when did the other one come out? 2023?
2022.
2022. Like for those versions, I feel like it wasn't a necessity to have played the previous trilogy.
No, you didn't.
So, sometimes it's like with games, it's a bit more the case of like you don't need to play each iteration. Very different with movies, and maybe that's one of the reasons why like these bigger franchises are like going down the drain, because it's so expected of you to have seen it all to like fully understand every reference, and here it's just I guess mythology. It looked interesting.
But what's the news that you have for me?
Look, Nicolas Cage was like a sort of supporting character in Into the Spider-Verse, right? He was playing Spider-Noir, the Spider-Man who's like from the 30s in like all obviously noir, like black and white. They've been talking about making that into a series for a while. We got our first trailer, and I was quite surprised because I actually wasn't following this at all, that it is live action. I was actually so surprised. Did you notice? Like I thought it was animated.
No. I knew it was.
I probably heard that. We
action.
probably discussed it. I probably said on this podcast before, like, pretty exciting that it's live action, but I've totally forgotten since then. So it hit me kind of out of left field. and the show is arriving sooner than later. It's a Prime production. Like the full show will be out on the 28th of May, and the first episode comes out on the 25th. And we got to see like basically these two different versions as well. Like one of them was like the black and white version, and then the one that's like, you know, the color version.
The True You what's called?
Wait, what was it called?
But like I'm not lying, bro. It's called the True You.
I forgot what it was called though. I didn't write that down. But we got obviously Nicolas Cage as Ben Reilly in this. I see that Brendan Gleeson has a supporting role. Lamorne Morris plays Robbie Robertson. I think the character of Sandman makes an appearance in the show. I really didn't read or like much about this. I'm very interested in going into this, having seen this first trailer and then checking it out, because it looks quite fun to me. Even though if it's like I don't care like what the quality is, to me this looks quite intriguing. But did you end up watching?
Which version are you watching?
I just watched the one where like at the end it switched to the color. Oh, you mean like when the show comes out?
Yeah.
Probably the black and white version, because it feels like that's how it was intended.
Same.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. The other thing looked a bit like, obviously it's going for that look of like, I think restoration coloration, like basically because it's from an era pre-Technicolor and all of those, so you have to color in the actual, you know, single frames. And that's probably the look that they're maybe going for a bit. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm talking out of my ass here, but I'm interested in Spider-Noir.
I'm interested as well. I was a bit surprised that it's a Prime original, which I guess that is the part that I forgot.
Yep.
So I know there's money in this.
Yeah.
If it's Prime, hey, they have like 2 or 3 of the most expensive shows of all time. Like even like episode per episode cost.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, also it's not like, you know, you have to do expensive shows so you can continuously lay off people every week. So, you know, good on Prime for cutting their workforce and putting it more into projects like, probably not like this, but more into the Melania documentary project. Anyways, movies aren't political, right? Right, nothing's political, Kevin. So there was recently
I'm in for a ride right now. I'm in for a ride.
So the Berlin Film Festival at the time of recording, which is Friday the 13th, Kevin. What? Oh no.
Oh, I knew you didn't.
No, I knew. But just playing it up for the sake. Look at me, I'm such a good actor. But it started yesterday, and obviously with the start of the festival, there's a press conference with the full jury, which is led by Wim Wenders, the director who most recently made one of my favorite films of all time, Perfect Days. There were a bunch of other people on the jury as well, which don't really, I guess they didn't really talk when it comes to that like discussion that I wanted to bring to the show right now. Apart from one Polish producer called Ewa Pusnizinska. Sorry, I'm sorry. But she also briefly talked about it, because they were asked if in the process of this sort of in this jury and the types of movies that are screened in Berlin, which are often like very political, maybe even more than some of the stuff that ends up landing at the other two big European film festivals, like in Cannes and Venice. Venice seems to be usually the least politically, charged. But then we had something like The Voice of Hind Rajab last year, which really, kind of threw a wrench into that whole discussion, and there was a whole like drama around that. When asked if sort of the jury here represents the selective treatment of human rights, like the German government does by not condemning the actions of Israel towards Palestine, but assigning, but showing support for Iran and Ukraine, if like they represent that as well. And to me, like I watched that a bit of the actual press conference, and it felt like a very charged question. Obviously, it was trying to get a rise out of them, but also provoke and say like there's something wrong, like to point that out. But the way that they responded, I think, has like, I feel like they were saying what they intended to say was actually Yeah, but you could definitely like twist that in a way where like they would say, "Oh, movies are never political." Vin Vendors basically having a quote where he's saying, "No movie actually does something that like politicians would do. Like it doesn't change the opinion of a politician. So therefore, it has like nothing that is like politically bringing about change. All you can do is like tell individual stories, and they connect with people, and that's what's changing." But I feel like, maybe you overuse the term political, but like that to me is political as well. So like it comes back around to like what you, I think, mean by something being political or not. But I think the dismissive nature of like saying we are here to talk about movies and not about politics is like I can understand from a jury standpoint, because you don't want to be just quoting and talking about like real life things just because you are elevated up on this jury now and you represent something and people want to get a statement out of you, but you want to talk about the actual substance. And I feel like you can do a lot of like the politicizing of a movie without actually having seen the film, which happens so much. It literally is happening with Wuthering Heights as well. Like the way that is like also a political sort of adaptation, that a lot of people see the character of Heathcliff as someone who's a person of color, and in all of the movie depictions, apart from one from Andrea Arnold, he really wasn't. But that's not really like explicitly stated in here. So a lot of the ways that we adapt the story is inherently also political. And I think it gets really convoluted. Like through this whole ordeal, which is, obviously big headlines of like what you can say and what you can't say and what you support by speaking out or not speaking out. Like it's a minefield, right? And I don't really blame someone for trying to navigate that and then not having the perfect words that resonate with every single person, because it's also something that like is obviously very emotional, because it is so like, I don't know, it feels like you're celebrating something very different here. The somewhat oftentimes glamorous, like fictionalized version, or even if it's documentary, like it's a celebration of the work and not actually helping in a place that maybe that documentaries would want to make a change in for focusing on that, right? It's not bringing about that change. And I think Wim Wenders is just like very realistic about that. And you could obviously over idealize like the impact something like Hind Rajab is like awareness, right, that it brings, but not actual change. No one less has died because of this film in Palestine. And I think that's what I'm taking away of how I'm interpreting what he was trying to say. But what did you think?
I think, cinema can do a whole lot.
Oh yeah.
And over the years, especially at Venice, like it has become a bit political. You got that one year that both had Russians at war and the other Ukrainian movie, Only Birds Can Sing, or like Songs of the Earth. I think something along those lines it was.
Yeah.
Then you got I'm Still Here, right? That had a whole ass movement behind it. Then you had Secret Agent this year. You had The Voice of Hind Rajab. So films can highlight something. They can denounce something. Just look at all of the Iranian cinema that has come out the last couple of years, always highlighting a certain section of the law or against the movement, something like that.
Yeah.
So it can create something, it can highlight something, it can denounce something. It can do a whole lot. And I do get that as a jury, you can't be biased. And I think that's also what he's sort of trying to say.
Yeah. Exactly, but that is tough. Like that was one of the accusations that even I leveled at like something like the jury in Cannes last year, that it didn't give the main award to sentimental value, right? And then it's in Venice, it was like the inverse, right? In Cannes, it felt like they did the political pick of going with the Iranian movie that spoke of like something important that like I personally didn't connect with as much as like other people did at the festival.
I did.
And since then, it's become more apparent to me that like that's totally a fair other choice, an alternative choice. I was like, maybe it was also put into the context of the horrible choice that Venice made. But there was like the question of like, okay, why does The Voice of Hind Rajab not get that price? Because it was the most timely, most urgent movie that also would have been maybe on that level of deserving that main prize, and instead you went with something way lighter, way less impactful.
A movie everybody's gonna forget in about 2 years.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I didn't put this down, but I did have it in my mind for like the last 2 weeks that this movie is just for old people And that's my criticism of it. It's like, it sort of feels like it's a movie that, as a it's an overgeneralization of someone who's like not 30 yet, is in the age, especially now, where like a lot of people within our age, within this call, are like struggling to find a sort of routine of work and that security and that structure, that like once you're older and your life naturally becomes more rigid because it also comes with security. I feel like it's more that the world is like you have your own world and that's moving around you, and when you're younger the world is moving you along way more. You're along for the ride, and you also with that way more connected with what is current and what is like, urgent and everything. And that feels like it's maybe a bit easier for some people to dismiss things because they're older, because they feel like it's also like set in stone, when it really doesn't feel like that, especially in turbulent times like, currently. But yeah, man, everything's political. It's like, I don't know what to tell you.
Everything is political except this podcast, because we're not a political podcast.
Well, one of my questions, but I guess you already answered it, because you said like, cinema can have a great impact. I was like, the question to me is like, can cinema only capture, or can it actually create? Like, in a documentary, can it only capture something, or can it actually spark and create? It's like, maybe it's also like a very open-ended, loose and not defined question that you would need to define further to talk about it, but just like, as an undisclosed concept of it all. Do you think it only captures, or does it create?
Why can't it build upon something?
And that's like a perfect tie-in, because that's what basically, in a similar way what Wim Wenders was saying, like, the sort of, someone was asking, his films feel fantastical often, and like blend that line between reality and like the documentary and the fiction, and he was like saying like, why can't it be both? Like he feels like it's moving more towards that way where it can be two things at the same time. And I like that. I'm all for it. My favorite word is nuance. I like that shit. Anyways, Kevin, it's time for you to leave in the vacuum of space. Yeah. Well, I'll call you back. Like a fucking. Can I throw like a Pokeball and you go in and then like, who's that Pokemon? It's.
No.
Did I get you? Okay. Well, I thought that's how I could treat you, but I guess not.
What you can do is you can snap your fingers and then Lachlan will appear.
Okay.
Ah.
Whoa. Didn't expect.
That was terrible. We're gonna rock with it. I guess that was my direction that I got, so I guess that's where I'm gonna go.
Yep. It shows you how good not a director I am, but maybe a musician or a magician. Lachlan.
Hello.
It's been a while. Maybe some people aren't familiar who've recently started listening to a podcast a bit more.
Who is this guy?
Glad to have you back. Who's this guy? And I honestly, the biggest thing I have to adjust to is like, because you are all the way down under. There's a solid 1 second for me to say something, for you to reach it, and it's so different with Kevin in Belgium. Like the difference of latency is like so much.
Crazy.
I don't know how we ever made that work, man. In the podcast, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a bit of an adjustment as well. Look, I've got a different set now. Look, we've painted the wall. I've got a bunch of cameras behind me, some cabinets. That's it. There's like literally nothing else. I'm in an empty warehouse. It's just this. That's all I've got. And then all the walls fall down, and Tom Cruise is like, "We've got him." It's a fake out. This is exciting to be back. Especially for the steamiest movie of the year.
Of course. So I had to have you back for that, especially because you provide the perspective of someone who's actually in a relationship.
Not Dune Part 3. Not Dune Part 3, but Wuthering Heights. You were like, we got to get him back to that one. Well,
it would have been a bit too long for you to return, like to wait until all the way for... Yeah, and I think you'll be back maybe even later this month already, depending on... We'll see. That's we got more with you in store, and I'm looking forward to what you have to say about Wuthering Heights. Anything else you want to talk about before we, I guess, talk about that movie?
Do I have anything here that I could? Hey, won $3 on this scratchy, so hell yeah. That's all I've got.
It's good. It's good that we focus on the like important life update.
Very, very important. I won $3 on a scratchy, and that's the fucking highlight of my last 6 months. No, I've just been at home renovating and living the adult life and struggling to find time. But hey, I found time for this, and now that I've got a bit more of a space going on, I feel like I can get those creative juices flowing, and I feel like they haven't been flowing because I've been prioritizing my efforts elsewhere, and now I'm back here, and this feels good, man. I like it. You know, it's like Thanos putting on the Infinity Gauntlet, and I'm about to wipe all of you out and take you over. That's right. Capital Venture. I'm here for a hostile takeover. I'm buying quite on set. Because I'm rich now.
That's what you've been. Yeah, exactly. You're doing.
I rode away on a horse, and I'm doing a Heathcliff thing. I'm back rich. I'm buying this place. This is mine now.
When I said, does it even happen in this movie? I've watched so many versions of Wuthering Heights, I don't even know if it happens in this. But like the thing where she says like he's beneath him, I meant you're down under, Lachlan. I didn't mean you're beneath me. I think you misunderstood.
And it makes no sense in this movie because he is not beneath her. He is so much taller than her. Jacob or Lordy, do you really need all of that?
Well, I need all of that. It's tall glass of man. And you know, let's talk about Wuthering Heights. I'll read you the synopsis. Tragedy strikes when Heathcliff falls in love with Catherine Earnshaw, a woman from a wealthy family in 18th century England. This one comes from the Saltburn and promising young woman director Emerald Fennell, and stars in the titular roles as Catherine Earnshaw, Margot Robbie, and as the tall and handsome Heathcliff, we got Jacob Elordi. It then in the extended cast, I think cuts a ton of roles that were in the book, and it's also a movie that is Wuthering Heights in quotation marks. Is sort of, I guess, pre-warning that this is just her take on the story, which, spoiler alert, having seen now 6 of these movies and having read the book, there's no film or TV show that actually accurately adapts this book, so it's kind of redundant to sort of preemptively put it into quotation marks. But Lachlan, you know, you were one of the many lucky people who went out to see this actually on Valentine's Day, and with a partner as well. That's definitely, you know, their intended audience too. So what did you make of this movie, maybe as a date movie, but also as a movie overall? Yeah,
originally I was going to go by myself until I said, nah, that's a fucking terrible idea. I look like such a weirdo going to watch this movie by myself. So, I actually pushed it back to Saturday because I really wanted someone to come and watch it with me, and that was my girlfriend. And I won't lie, it's definitely the intended audience, because when I walked into the cinema, we walked in just before the screening start. It was just couples. That's all it was. It was just couples in the cinema, and that makes total sense. Except for maybe the one, you know, guy in the back corner. That could have been me, but it wasn't, because I went with somebody, which is, yeah, I was like, that guy. I was like, I was going to be that guy. Your question was just my general thoughts, yeah? We're not going to get into it straight away?
Yeah.
Just are we going straight into, like, the whole thing?
Oh, yes. Well, we can say spoiler warning for the movie. I mean, I feel like it's such an old book. It's was written a long time ago, and I feel like if you want to spark notes, a lot of people, you know, what should have been my first question other than general thoughts is like, why is there so much outrage for this adaptation? Why are there so many people preemptively before having seen the film, you know, saying the casting is shit, the whole movie is bad, everything bad surrounding it, and maybe why that is, because I feel like a lot of people are shitting on this movie without having seen it. It's also happening that a lot of people who have seen it have a lot of fair criticisms, you know, coming the movie's way. But that's why I was curious about, like, someone who went into not having read the novel and probably also staying clear of all of that, like, online chatter, what your experience was like.
Pretty neutral, because for me, I think that the film as a whole, just like all of Emerald Fennell's films, they are beautiful, stunning. There was literally a point in this film where I was like, I could probably watch this movie without any audio, without any dialogue, and just watch it, because it is absolutely incredible. So before I even continue, I need to shout out whoever the cinematographer is, because the cinematographer in this film, Linus Sandgren, let's have a look. La La Land, Don't Look Up, Babylon, No Time to Die. All right, cool. That makes total sense because this film is stunning from start to end. There's especially some super important shots, especially when they depart each other's lives for a moment. Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi's character, Kathy and Heathcliff. A particular shot that comes to mind is her on the ground in a red dress on a checkered floor in Wuthering Heights, the actual building itself, and it slowly cuts into a shot, Jacob Elordi on a horse with a red silhouetted background of a sunset, and that entire shot to me was I just stood there and I went, wow, that is stunning. And I love it when a film does that. It makes me literally go, wow. The other thing about this film is, just like the rest of Fennell's filmography, is that the music is fantastic. Not only just the score, but the soundtrack. I think Charlie XCX does some of the songs in this, and they're absolutely just like perfect when it comes to the tone. They're not dated music. It's not like super pumpy EDM style music. It's got a little bit of electronic funk to it. But I feel like the score matches really well with that soundtrack, and it does kind of flow in and out of that really well. So just like, especially Saltburn with some really good tracks, and Promising Young Woman, this film especially takes that sort of balance of not score heavy, not soundtrack heavy, because I felt Saltburn was quite soundtrack heavy with its use of music in that film, but I think they found a really good balance here. The thing I find with this movie is I felt the pacing was a little bit off. I feel like there is a weird sort of bridging act between Act 2 and Act 3, where it kind of drags on for a hot minute. I feel like it starts to slow down quite quickly, and I feel like there's a little bit of a dialogue problem. I find it boring, if I'm completely honest, some of the dialogue choices and conversations. I found the overall story to be okay, but I just kind of felt like the scene, character to character, actor to actor moments just a little bit boring, and that's got nothing to do with Margot Robbie, Jacob Elordi, Hong Chu, Alison Oliver. There's a lot of people in this who are, absolutely fantastic actors, and I think I think this is probably my favorite Jacob Elordi performance so far. Actually, no, right. Frankenstein was way better.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Never mind, I forgot he was Frankenstein for a moment, and then I realized it was Frankenstein. But I feel like it was up there. I feel like it was better than Saltburn for me. I feel like Saltburn had the shock factor. This was definitely way more tame. It definitely had those elements. Like, I'm not having eggs for the next 6 months. It definitely has its moments of shock value, and I feel like that's what people are going to ride home about. This is not as shocking as Saltburn, but it's not as complex as Saltburn. Saltburn has a lot of moving parts, and this is quite simple. You're saying that there's a lot of characters taken out of this, and that makes sense because I feel like it's a really big sole focus on Kathy and Heathcliff, and that totally makes sense because I feel like most of the side characters are a little bit underutilized. But, I feel like they're extremely underutilized.
Should I give you a bit of context to the differences as to as clearly as I think it's not really relevant because you can do an adaptation. Obviously, you're going to change it so it works as a movie. And the one big reason, the narration in the book is all told through Nellie, Hong Chau's character. And she, in all of the movie adaptations I've seen at least, she's always just the good servant who's watching this all unfold. And here she takes a bit more of an active role, which I actually found a really interesting change. And then when it comes to these characters in the story, a lot of them, this is now a spoiler for the movie as well as the novel. So if you haven't seen it yet, go watch the movie first. Kathy dies about here in the book. And there's this much left.
Jesus.
So they never adapt the full story.
Oh, wow.
It goes a whole new generation. They all have 3 different kids. The brother who is not in the film that she initially has, Hindley, is the name of the dad in this. In the novel, it's her brother. He has a kid. Then Edgar and Catherine have a kid.
The one that's
dead?
The one that's dead? The dead brother?
Yeah. The dead brother who they name Heathcliff after.
Sure.
That's not in the book. That's he's called Hindley. And he's the one who's actually, like, in the book, the father is actually a really good man, and Hindley is the dirtbag who, like, then takes over and is the drunk and has a lot of debts, and they fold the dad and the brother into the same character, which I think is it's all fine. I think it's just, like, the place where they exist never feels like real at all, and I think that's very intentional. And I think it's just like, are you able and willing to meet what she's doing here, which is just like a very elaborate and expensive fan fiction of this original novel at eye level, or are you going to be annoyed that it even exists? And I think a lot of people are annoyed at it, and I just took it at eye level. Two beautiful people falling in love. It doesn't make any sense to, like, you know, their character motivation. We are here for the Zack Snyder equivalent of slow motion shots of beauty and intimacy and longing. Not as much sexiness as might have been, you know, sold to you in the trailers and in the promotion of the film, but still an adequate amount. And I was just, like, thoroughly entertained and stunned by the beauty put in the crafts of, like, the production design, the costumes. Like, one other change is, like, that they make the Linton family, like Isabella and Edgar, one that has come through with fabric. So that gives them a justification for her to, like, have, like, a room of dresses. So in the story, you get to have that. Like, that's not part of this story at all as well. So they just, like, make changes that make sense for the story that she wants to tell. And I don't really see a huge problem with it, because I feel like no one has gotten to the core of what this story is actually about. And it's not really a love story. It's more one about, like, social structures and the recurring bits of, like, generational trauma that you willingly place onto the next, like, you bestow that trauma onto the next one. And that's, like, no one ever focuses on that in a good way. So it just becomes, like, this romanticization of a pretty bad relationship. And I think, like, one other critic coming out of the screening said, like, yeah, at least this was one of the adaptations where they adequately showed that both of these people, the leads, are kind of assholes. They're kind of pieces of shit. And I was like, yeah, no, I like that. And you're like, you see two people who aren't good people fall in love, and that's it. Like, if you can't if you can't endure that, then you will have a horrible time with this movie. But that's really, to me, all it was.
Sexy people who are bad sexy people in love. One counterpoint to my side characters being boring is I did find the father character, played by Martin Clune, to be one of my favorite characters in this. I think that his arc is, for me, the most rewarding and most filling to see him go from such point A to point B, because the entire time, Kathy and Heathcliff are, I mean, yes, they're not bad at the start, but they're not good, and they're kind of just mean to each other, and that's really all it is. And then they exert their cruelty outwards to the rest of the cast, and, like, that's the kind of evolution. But you kind of know that they're not good people from the start. For me, though, seeing Martin Clune's evolution of the father character go from rich but a piece of shit to poor and a beggar, and it's still a bit of a piece of shit, but, you know, not as much, because he doesn't have as much going for him. But I found his character really, really, really engaging for whatever reason. I just kind of enjoyed that character more than I enjoyed any of the arcs of the main two. Even Edgar and the servant, Hong Chu's character, I don't
Nelly,
her name is Nelly. Isabel character, you know, a weird, like, left hook turn, very quickly happens as well. So
one question for me was, like, because I said that in my initial review that's on the channel, like the spoiler free one, there's, like, one twist in the story where I expect people to nervously laugh because it's so uncomfortable. How did people react to that, like, scene of her, like, behaving as a dog?
I don't think there was enough people in the crowd to kind of go, huh?
Yeah.
I think Tanika and I definitely looked over each other being like, that's an interesting one. But I don't think it was, like, shocking. You could kind of see that she was submissive from the moment that he, you know, starts making this deal with her, especially with the positioning of them. He was significantly taller and shadowing her, while she was fully in a position of not having any power over him physically and also socially, to see all of a sudden next scene, or not the exact next scene, but the scene afterwards, just how she's reacting in this sort of relationship is just it was a weird interesting quick revelation, and I feel like it could have been subtly built upon in some sort of other way, but yeah.
It's sort of the thing, because we get it told through Nellie's perspective in the book, it also leaves out certain things, and also you question how reliable of a narrator she is, which that's why I found it so interesting that, like, the way that plays out of her, like, waiting until Heathcliff is there, until she, like, asks a leading question that she might know that, that he might respond to, and that she might say something that would hurt him. Not that she would, like, scheme it all out, but it definitely is a different choice to go about, like, that character, showing her more in, like, less of the neutral light, which, like I said, all of the other movie adaptations really show her as someone who's very neutral, which makes sense if she's a storyteller. She's not going to place, any sort of burden on, like, she's going to be a good worker when she's never really met with that equal respect by others, right? So her motivation for them to be insufferable towards each other and to everyone around them, so that does make sense that, like, she's doing maybe a little bit of scheming on the side.
Her motivation was because she has a crush on Heathcliff.
Oh, was it? Oh my god, sorry. I've watched this movie and then I watched 4 other adaptations.
Because my thought is, when afterwards I was like, does she have motivation for all of this, like lashing out?
Well, a lot of it doesn't really make
fired
sense. Honestly, a lot of it doesn't make sense, right?
And I was trying to find motivation for her. Like, why does she stick around? Why does she not move on? Obviously, she was kicked out by her father. She's a bastard. She's not really a lady. She's a servant, etc., etc., etc. And what does she gain from telling, other than just in the moment hysteria and frustration at Kathy firing her, telling her husband that, hey, she might not be all for you. She might be sleeping around with Heathcliff, etc., etc. Like, why does she do that? And I felt like, maybe, because I feel like there was I remember there being a scene about, you've never loved anyone ever before, and I feel like that was the one that was really on. I think that's when that was said, and then it, shifts to Heathcliff seeing her through a window. I believe that's how the scene plays out. But then later on, they just play it as she saw him through the window. I totally thought there was a romance story going on there. Like, hey, she's also in love with Heathcliff. But nothing. She doesn't really have any motivation for me to kind of, like, engage with her. And this is my annoying part about this film, is that from a outside of Heathcliff and Kathy perspective, what the fuck does anyone do? Like, no one really has any motivation to do anything. Edgar kind of just sits there. What is Edgar doing? A lot of the
motivations go by sort of because they're so attractive, and that's not really, I think that's what it is, right? It's the longing for, like, Isabella's totally in love with Heathcliff, and Edgar is in love with Catherine. That's sort of how they have the power over them, when in the, like, it is not really that, like, it's really not doing any sort of, like, analysis of that time and weaving that into the character motivations. It feels like there's a lot at stake for them at the time, but it doesn't accurately sort of come through that, like, okay, if you really want to be together, why aren't you just together? Why aren't you, like, breaking it off? What are the obligations? And I think it is a bit more, the difference in the novel is that, like, they never actually get to be together, and that sort of fuels his frustration, where he's at her deathbed swearing, like, wanting to haunt her and to never leave her. And then he goes on basically a revenge trail through different generations and make sure none of their children, no one has any money left. All of it is in his hands, and then he dies. and like, it's really, really depressing. It's very, like, incredibly selfish. He's in, like, that's why it's so crazy that, like, he's not an anti-hero in any sort of way. He really is the villain of the story. And I think it muddles that quite a lot. When villain is hot, then maybe he not so bad, that is a conflicting thing.
I mean, that's what they do
here.
with Despicable Me.
Yeah. He's so hot. Are you
He's
talking
so
about
hot.
the minions or?
I'm talking about Gru.
Sorry, I was thinking about banana.
Finally, I just want to quickly, because this is the only other really big note that I've got, is I feel like the set of Wuthering Heights was not utilized enough.
For how crazy it is, like the house of like the two.
Yeah.
I love that sort of. That was a great touch of like
when I
location.
saw the shot of the two girls running back to Wuthering Heights, right early on in the film, and I was like, "There's no way it's next to that." And then the next shot is literally that house within those mountainous rocks. I was like, "This is gorgeous." If they need to make this like a theatrical set, like they need to play it as if like it was a theater play. Like, don't show me anything else. Just show me it from this one angle, and that is stunning. Not exactly in one angle, but they needed to make that set way more important in those scenes, because that was beautiful. It would be fantastic imagery having this enclosure, these sheltered kids and family, and it would really make it feel like they're not so, part of the world and more cut off, and makes that kind of love story more relatable, that they're, they don't really have any interaction with the outside world that much. There's just something there that I feel like wasn't utilized, like was a really cool set, but just wasn't brought to its full potential.
I think it speaks to, how the movie opens, and there's the one scene with Ewan Mitchell's character, Joseph, where he's like hooking up, and then she's leaving him for someone who has more status, which is, just the same story that sort of plays out actually in the book, but here they don't do that, because the separation is not really happening, because they can still like meet up in secret and hook up. So the stakes aren't really there. So like for the movie to still play out, or the story to play out in a similar way of her leading to her death, it's just like a lot of it is sort of forced and not in the constraints of just you want a fan fiction where these two actually hook up a bit more. And that's like sort of like her motivation of casting Jacob Elordi is because when Emerald Fennell was reading it, she said that like she saw someone like, Heathcliff, similar to Jacob Elordi, and how she was like viewing it. There's a whole other angle where like, the way he's described, a lot of people argue that it's clear that he's a person of color. Not entirely sure, if it could also just be like Irish, or it could be black, or it could be like a variety of different things. And apart from one adaptation that I've seen, at least, all of the castings have been white, and there's been like a lot of outrage for that, which I wouldn't really fault this version for that. I think you could have just also have like you'd have a young, handsome, tall black actor and put him in this role, and I think this movie wouldn't play out that differently in an Emerald Fennell movie, because she's not really going to go that deep into those sort of topics. I think the light thing that she touches on is sort of, there's a naughtiness and dirtiness in all of us, the way that it opens with like the guy being hanged and like having a boner, and like the
everyone
nun,
kind of getting off to it. Yeah.
And the other thing is like the scene with Joseph, like Ewan Mitchell's character, who's I think described on Letterboxd still as no, now he's Joseph. He used to be like whip wielding man or something like that, which is like weird because Joseph is in this story. I don't know why they changed his character. He wasn't wielding a whip then. But yeah, I honestly had a pretty good time with it. Now I feel like I'm being shamed into liking this movie less. The thing is, like, I didn't really like Saltburn that much. I didn't hate it, but it definitely was like overhyped and so front and center in culture, especially when it landed on Amazon Prime. And I'm wondering how much of an impact this movie will have, because it feels like it's coming. There's so much hate being thrown its way, and I think there's a lot of like flaws to be pointed out and analyzed, and they are very valid. I think it doesn't really take away though from my enjoyment of just like the crafts on screen and the beauty of these two actors falling in love, even if it's like incredibly shallow. I think like those things can coexist at the same time. So like rating wise, I'm like at a 6.5 out of 10 for this one.
Yeah, I'm a bit more neutral. I think I'm landing at a 6 as well. I think that on Letterboxd you had it at 3.5, and I put it at a 3, so that kind of puts me around a 6. Because I remember looking at it and I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm at 3.5. I think I'm at 3. I think that even though I could probably, what I would actually, you know how I thought I could make this movie better? They get rid of the dialogue. They make it so there's no dialogue. It's just music and Foley. And every time dialogue is said, it's like the classic, like, before they had talkies, it would just come up with the dialogue on the screen. Like in like its own like title card.
Yeah.
That's the movie. It would simplify the dialogue down and it would make it way more cinematic. I reckon let's cut that together. Let's get a cut together. Get me the director's cut. Actually, well, no, not that director, but get me a cut of this where no dialogue, just score, soundtrack, Foley, cinematography, and title cards of all of that. So
I mean, actually, shout out to Jacqueline Duran, who did also, the costumes for the Batman, for Barbie, for Little Women, for Pride and Prejudice, for Atonement, for the Beauty and the Beast, for Spencer, but she also did them for this film. So she's great with like period stuff, but also like period drama stuff, but then also, some really colorful or less colorful things, a really versatile costume designer that I think there's some crafts in this movie that, you can buy at a level, we didn't say that yet, but like, $80 million for an adaptation like this, I think it's going to make its money back. But that also means when you spend that amount of money that you maybe have the best people at the top of these departments, that are really, really good. And what you get is like that on a top notch level. And I feel like you can't fall below a certain threshold, even if you don't connect with the movie, just because its presentation is so not just expensive, but also competent, and especially in the cinematography and in the costume design, as well as partly the production design as well. This movie is really stellar, and I wouldn't be surprised if, a year from now, we'd have a couple of nominations for this film right there, because I think it's that strong. Really, other things have to surpass it. For me, it's really up there, and worthwhile, to see just for that reason alone. Maybe stay away from X, like Lachlan said, for a while. Because they do be cracking, so or needing a bit of dough. Very sexual style, huh? Thanks so much for hopping back on the podcast. I guess we'll switch back over to Kevin in a second, but looking forward to having you on the show a bit more regularly. It was also, do all of those cameras in the background, like, do they still work? Could you use all of them if you put like film into them?
Yes, the film for this is super expensive. The shutter needs to be repaired on this. This one is fully functional. I've shot actively on this one. These both work. And then this one also works. However, 8mm film is a little bit hard to get. Like Super 8 film is a little bit hard to get for this. It's not that hard to get. I can get it. Getting it developed is a whole other thing. There's like one place that I found. There is no one local in Western Australia that I could find to get this developed locally for me. So I would have to ship it over east, and that's too much work. I would like to do it for at least one role, but I want to wait till I'm doing like going on a holiday or something and take it to that.
It looks, dude, I love your background. It's so simple but so neat.
This doesn't have to make it into the podcast, but it's got 3 different lenses, so like a wide, a telephoto, and an ultra wide that rotate like this, and then basically it winds up. It's spring loaded, and then I can like press this button to like, I don't know if it's going to get the audio sound, but Discord probably won't have that. It probably cuts it out. But it's just mechanical. Hang on, I might be able to do this for you actually. And like,
oh, it spins. Oh my God. Nice.
So yeah.
And I'll get Kevin back in 3, 2, 1.
Oh, I'm back.
He's back. Mr. Crime, you're right in time for our session today.
Since when did you have these powers?
Make sure to like and subscribe to this, this channel. But don't watch it too much. Don't let too many people see it. Don't share it with people, because I know the government will come after me if they know that I got these powers. Okay, make sure. This is your introductory course here for Crime 101. Stay hidden. All right.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
You didn't leave any DNA here. Ah, shit.
Well, who's to say how my powers work, Anyways, let's talk about Crime 101 by Bart Layton. An elusive thief eyeing his final score encounters a disillusioned insurance broker at her own crossroads. As their paths intertwine, a relentless detective trails them, hoping to thwart the multi-dollar heist they are planning. That's the latest action crime thriller, starring Chris Hemsworth, Halle Berry, Mark Ruffalo, Barry Keoghan, and I'll stop it there for now because that just seems like a recent Marvel reunion. We also got Monica Barbaro, Corey Hawkins, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Nick Nolte in the film, which, by the way, Nick Nolte also was, I believe, in Hulk. In the 2003 version, so you got a ton of people who actually starred in these Marvel movies. It's like no one escapes the grasp of them. But we're not here to talk about the MCU. We're here to talk about a film that actually, I saw like on Rotten Tomatoes, 100% fresh, the first like crime thriller this decade that did that or something like that. Both of us having seen it, both of us being a fan of a good crime thriller. What did you think about Crime 101?
The first thing that you obviously hear with movies like this, all aside of the Rotten Tomatoes 100%, all that thing, is oftentimes these movies or like the people that have seen them refer to other movies like, oh my god,
so
it is
90s.
a bit like Heat. Oh my god, it's a bit like Collateral, which are both Michael Mann movies. So just say, oh my god, it is so similar to a Michael Mann movie, okay?
Yeah.
But I will say that comparison is justified. I feel like that's totally a right comparison. This is Chris Hemsworth's first movie since Furiosa, and especially after his like early Alzheimer
diagnosis.
Yeah. And then you also have Mark Ruffalo coming into this, and Mark Ruffalo, I feel like he's very picky with his projects as well. Like it truly has to say something. Maybe not if it's like now you see me, now you don't. Okay, but like
that was
he usually like that's the paycheck, but he usually goes for these movies that have something to say. So that's also kind of intriguing to me. And then you got Halle Berry, which Halle Berry is, I don't know what type of actress she's become lately. Like I feel she's doing a bit more Netflixy stuff. Yeah, like The Union, Bruce, which was her directorial thing though, but I feel like I haven't seen much of Halle Berry. Now we get Crime 101. This is a theatrical released movie, and it feels like it. I would prefer to get movies like this a couple of times over the year instead of the weekly or monthly action slop we're getting on the streaming services. I do feel like this is a bar above those. But that said, it feels like it could use some tidying up, some, a bit tighter in some sections in terms of story, in terms of pace and editing wise. There could be done some improvements, even in character work. I know you wrote it in the show notes. Sometimes they're underserved and underused actors. But maybe you want to highlight that because it's your show note.
Well, I feel like with Corey Hawkins, he's been underused in a ton of projects. With Nick Nolte, he makes a great supporting actor. Monica Barbaro also hasn't had like a ton of like leading roles, but here she really is just a love interest. And we're gonna keep this review spoiler free until we actually talk about specifics if we want to, and we'll let you know. But honestly, me saying that she's just a love interest might also be kind of a slight spoiler because the way that
it's fine. It's fine.
I mean, the way that the story kind of goes about, in a way, with a crime thriller, you might be wondering, who's got what motivation, and for that, I think the movie is incredibly clean because it wants to have these sort of archetype characters that it wants to focus on, like Chris Hemsworth, who's this like sort of good criminal, the Robin Hood type, person with a troubled past who's like mysterious. We got the over yet idealistic cop who's not putting his career in front of his ideals. You got the underappreciated woman in like the patriarchal structures at work, which I guess is just like basically every woman, but like especially here with Halle Berry, it's like overemphasized. But I feel like when you talked about like the certain projects that she's taking, I think for me, it's also become more and more apparent that like I don't know how many knocks you get in your door and how many calls you get of like actual work that you want to take. So it might just be also the limited amount of like actual good projects to be interested by. And then unless you create them yourself and you have the ability to, it might be really tough, for some people who have had a career where they were like appreciated, who, with Halle Berry getting an Oscar even, to like sort of use that to further your career in a way, where you're not just used as like one of the, these movies that have like, one of these 7 Oscar winning or Oscar nominated actors. It's like that's the focus of the actual trailer, but the movie itself is like mid as hell and doesn't really use them. And I feel like this one is right on the line of like, it didn't surprise me at any like, with unexpected lane changes, but it also wasn't speeding through the story. It took its time. Didn't feel like unnecessary pit stops were taken. Sorry, I'll stop it with the puns. But it was just good entertainment, good solid entertainment. And I think the comparison to like a Michael Mann film or like films of the 80s and 90s is like, they're not a lot of like the side characters have more than a purpose other than being a side character to the story. And I feel like every time I watch a movie now, it's like, it almost either demands the attention out of you or like over narrates and explains everything that you definitely are not missing anything, but then also everything becomes important. And when some of these are just like, I don't know, it feels less tactile, it feels less like some of these scenes are just kind of hangouts, and I'm like wondering, okay, when is the betrayal coming? When is the like sort of shoe gonna drop? And it never really fully gets there. And by the end of it, you're like, oh no, that was oddly refreshing of like how straight up and, the actual story was. But was that something that you enjoyed about the film? That it didn't have like that many twists? It didn't feel like it needs to do flashbacks to contextualize some characters, but actually just like let their current actions speak for them as like characters, that existed before the movie started?
I'm gonna say something I've always said in the past, and you heard this plenty of times. This is a crime thriller, but it's also an action movie at points. And I've always said with action movies, you can have the best action and to make up for a lesser story. But that if you do that, you're never gonna be like a 9 out of 10, a 10 out of 10, maybe even an 8 out of 10 movie for me. This movie goes a bit more in the other way. I feel like it balances it out, but not both the story or action are both top tier. Which is a bit of a surprise by a director such as Bart Layton. American Animals, which I adored. Like, talk about underwatched and undertalked movies. I feel like American Animals should be up there. Wait, what? You didn't see it?
I haven't seen it, no.
To be fair, I haven't seen The Imposter, which was Bart Layton's first movie, which apparently is also very good. You have Chris Hemsworth, who is the criminal with a troubled past. You have Halle Berry, who is who works at an insurance company, and then you have Mark Ruffalo, the cop, and both Halle Berry and Mark Ruffalo's character are sort of going against the grain within their own respective work. You got
even the criminal is, right, in the way that he's like the one not doing violence. It's everyone going against the grain.
Everyone's going against the grain. Everyone's struggling with a certain duality within their own rights, within their own environment, and I think that's the meat of the movie, and that's the aspect of the movie that keeps itself going. Maybe it is a bit over-explained, like you said. This movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes, probably a bit less with credits and, the opening title credits. But yeah, it's a little bit undercooked, especially for how well cooked American Animals was. But it was interesting nonetheless, and that's probably what drew the actors to the project as well. Then you have, I named the 3 actors, then you have Barry Keoghan, who is working along, or like for Nick Nolte, because we need some fresh blood. We need someone who dares to punch. We need someone who dares to bring up a gun to someone and potentially shoot it. And I feel like Barry Keoghan, if anyone is underused, it is Barry Keoghan's character. And it doesn't have to be him necessarily in the scenes, like that talking. I'm more talking about him as a presence. I think the movie was doing it like at its height whenever he was, like, whenever there was some paranoia going on, wherever it's like, oh wait, I'm hearing a motorcycle, I'm seeing a guy with a helmet, and I think he could have had such a part a bit more or a bit longer into the movie than he had. He very much is like, hey, I'm here as a presence in a scene or two. We maybe have a chase that we'll talk about in the spoilers, actually, because that scene, I had a little bit of a problem with that one. But if anyone's underused, it is Barry Keoghan for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think his character is the one that's like partly. I'm keeping it spoiler free still. No worries if you haven't seen it. Is like the one that's struggling with maybe a bit of self identity in a way of like, proving himself, needing that, but then he's also supposed to be the full-on antagonist, and because he's such a loose gun, literally, as well, in a way, he's a bit unpredictable in a story that otherwise feels like it is trying to be, all of these characters try to be predictable. Like the cop tries to solve the crime, the insurance lady wants to make sure she moves up in the company and basically get what she's owed. All she needs is basically to be put on a plane that crashes and then onto an island, and maybe that would help her. I don't know if she would do as well as Rachel McAdams though. And then you got I think it's, the undercooked thing comes from the top down with Chris Hemsworth, which I get the intention in leaving a lot of it unsaid. I'm teetering on the side of like spoiler talk.
Yeah, no. I'm noticing it.
Should we go to spoilers? So I'm just making sure
sure.
I'm not. Let's talk about spoilers or not, because I don't think I have anything else to say. Like the movie looks quite grayish, but I think it's well shot. But that's
the thing.
Feeling it's going for.
It is stylishly gray. It is not like ugly digital gray. It's actually stylishly gray, which I was quite surprised by.
I mean,
because I was a bit worried with the trailer.
Upside down 101 as it's like slowly turns.
Yeah.
It's a great shot, and like I don't think it uses the 101 really as a setting as much, other than like I thought that like, going in not knowing much, I thought like, oh, much of this will take place like a single, maybe two crimes along the 101, and that's going to be the action. But it's just like, no, crimes are happening, jewelry theft along or like close to that interway. I don't know what it's called, interstate.
Ewan, it makes sense to me. Do you know who the cinematographer of Crime 101? You know what other movies he's done? He's done both the Paddington movies. Of course, this guy can shoot film, man.
No, it's got a great look. But spoiler talk. Chris Hemsworth. The way that we never we know that he's fallen into this life of crime in a very, to me, it was like underexplained version of Baby Driver, where he's also, indebted to someone, and it feels like, at least to me, like he wants to have a certain amount of money, so he feels secure. But I didn't know if I should read it as like that he's indebted to someone else as well, that he wants to like escape that grasp, like. But then it doesn't feel like he is like indebted to Nick Nolte. Like it's not placing him as like someone who is not in control. He's someone who's making the choices to be a criminal, but just not one that is violent. And that is a really interesting like character thing. Is like, is it motivated by trauma in the past? And we don't get that over explained and contextualized into like, this is the moment when he changed, when he witnessed violence that couldn't be undone, and he realized he's not going to bestow the same damage onto others. Like, it's not all of that, but then something in his current state that is like somewhat like, ooh, I can't tell you what I actually do. He's like being all coy, and it spends a rather like considerable amount of time on this like romance between him and Monica Barbaro, that the whole time, I don't know how you felt, but I felt like there's something that needs to be revealed about her and her true intentions, and maybe there's something off, and there really wasn't. And then I'm like wondering, okay, well, what did it say about, like, if that's the only thing, what did it say about him as a person then? Like, that's why it was there, not because it was like building to some sort of betrayal or reveal. Like that was one of the things that like underwhelmed me the most, that I felt like I wasn't getting enough from Chris's character. But I didn't want more context of his past. I just wanted more presence in the present.
I get you. The thing that I raise upon what you say is that this movie is also feels very much inherently like an LA movie. I can only imagine what the dating scene must look like in LA, and I think they're also sort of making a comment on that you know, everything in LA feels a bit fake, or like you're always pretending to be someone else.
Yeah.
And it also raises some of the environment. The homelessness in LA is pretty big. I've seen a few videos from that, and it is apparent. Like it is very much a problem over there. And the Chris Hemsworth stuff, it's also like you said, he's never settled. The guy literally has never settled, because funny enough, I saw a tweet today of like, I went to someone's house and it almost looked exactly like this, and it was almost like the same apartment as Chris Hemsworth was living in. Like no books, no personality, no photos, just like black and white, like very minimalistic. And he's also always stealing from other people. The things that he first said when Monica Barbaro character and Chris Hemsworth meet are things that he just heard dropped being in other conversations. Like, oh, I'm a software engineer. Oh, I do this, that. I move around work. So I didn't mind their romance that much, because there was something there. At least there was something and nothing there. And the nothing part has happened way too many times for me in action movies. So I'm glad we at least had that romance a bit. Now, what I would have changed is that Barry Keoghan goes after Monica Barbaro's character. That I would have found a bit more intriguing, because that is a reason that Chris Hemsworth's character would make mistakes.
Yeah. It's like the sort of thing that we were talking about last week when we talked about that. I already forgot the name of the film, but the one with Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa.
Oh, Wrecking Crew. Oh my
god. It's also by, now owned Amazon MGM. I think this Crime 101 is also a production by them, but this was the one deemed fit to. It was handled distribution here by Sony in Switzerland, but I don't know. But like to me, Monica Barbaro's character is also someone like, she is pointing out the not knowing much about his life in a way of like what's odd and whatever, and does like these and I think we are, for me, at like in a movie sense, in a narrative sense, we are like placed at like he's trying to evade revealing something. I feel like there's never the moment where we ask these questions back to her, so it feels both of them like quite blank slates at the end of it all. So I did feel like that was like, apart from attractiveness and attraction through attractiveness, I didn't really get much out of that, like, the amount of presence that it took. Like, I would have much rather seen a bit more of the Mark Ruffalo Corey Hawkins relationship. It felt like everyone in the lead three people were like teased of like a sort of character that they could dig their teeth into, and they have like different sides to them. They're complex, but also what I really appreciate, like what you said with the homelessness, is like that it doesn't end up focusing on one aspect that it like points the camera at and focuses on, but it paints a clearer picture of like, making it an LA movie that feels like it's taking in a current landscape of LA, and the police brutality, the shots fired first and questions asked later, the sort of structure of the police that like keeps up the thin blue line, and like how difficult it is to push against that while not making the whole thing about it. So it feels like it's going into a variety of topics, presenting them but not really going deeper, and then trying to maybe with the dualities of these characters end up saying something about that inherent structure that they all live under. And I think that's why it also resonated so well with a lot of people, or initially critics that have already seen the film by the time that we speak. like to me, like I said, to me it felt like because it's so much, it's like you got a whole buffet, but like half of it, is not fully done. It's a bit undercooked in parts, but I still feel like the whole time you're like, oh, I got a full buffet. I got so much to like, appreciate about this. It's so good, the variety, and you feel like as a whole bit of a whole movie, it's good. But if you look closer, then it starts to crack a bit more.
I mean, by the time I ate some of the stuff, already half of the buffet is cold. I think, and and I love how we're both going with this.
Allegories, bitch.
But
I like it.
The way that Monica Barbero's character and Chris Hemsworth's character also meet is a bit odd. I'm not gonna lie, I thought she was one of those scammers.
Yeah.
You know how they driving someone and like, oh my god, you hit me. I thought she was sort of that type, and then she isn't. Which again, maybe if she would have like teetered on the side of, oh, she's a good person, but she is also maybe with like, a fishy group. Like if she's actually scamming people on the street by hitting cars against, it's like, why would she be driving with the boss's car? Mm-hmm. But anyway,
I think this movie is good natured in a way that like,
yeah.
Let's not expect the worst out of every single one. Even the bad people here have redeeming factors and reasons why they operate the way that they do. And through that, it feels less like you are depicting movie characters, even though you are using these archetypes for the structure of like who they are. But then you really subvert these expectations with maybe something more naturalistic of like actual people, and not even their dualities, but something more complex than that. All the sort of contradictions. I like, and then also I think the one thing where it like hones in the most of like these one note characters is the rich guy at the end, where we aren't showing that like grace of complexity of someone like with the sort of his fiance, or like I don't know if they're married to a very young woman. Is like the switch that places her back into reality as well. Oh, sorry, I hope I didn't disappear there when I snapped. Like, with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting movie, and I hope it's like the type of film that I feel like people are saying. Like, I was wondering if for some people this will be their black bag type movie. I feel like it's nowhere near the level of.
I was thinking that as well. But I don't think it will happen.
Not enough people go out to see it, but it's then appreciated by a few people who will talk about it for the rest of the year. Feel like this fits the mold of like that type of film.
Loki, I think it fits. I think it's in the same category as Den of Thieves, like the first Den of Thieves. I really like the first Den of Thieves. Oh, you don't?
I still haven't seen it. I also haven't seen that. Was one of the few films that I haven't seen from last
year.
The
way that I'm referencing these movies that you haven't seen, like it's for the first time the roles are reversed.
Actually, no, when it comes to crime stuff, I feel like you are the one, especially with thrillers. Oh. I used to be one who's like, I am a favorite movie genre is thrillers. And I think it was a lot of it was through David Fincher and like stuff like that.
Oh.
But I'm missing a lot of like these the directors like this who have like only a few films to their name, but they're mostly in this thriller crime genre.
Hey, you're gonna watch Ed Sparrow's Creek this year, man. You're gonna.
Everyone thought you were gonna say you're gonna watch it this week.
No. Like whenever his next movie comes around.
Yeah, isn't it?
Can I just say?
Yeah.
My gripe with a certain scene is, I thought the chase between Chris Hemsworth and Barry Keoghan was wonderful. Like them riding around those trees, like crashing, like wonderful stuff.
Yeah,
but
chaotic
then
in the best way.
But then he goes into his shop, and again, you have to know Chris Hemsworth is the guy. He watches the CCTV. Like he lets Barry Keoghan go into that shop where there are probably cameras. I feel like that's a flaw that should have been. Like he should have avoided getting him into the shop to avoid getting both of them on camera. I mean, he literally is walking to a shop. He doesn't see Barry Keoghan. Then he looks to the cameras and it's like, oh, there he is. So you're being recorded and you know it. And in the beginning of the movie, hey, you cut the camera a few hours or like the day or the night before to not be seen. And it's like, like there was a lot of time that he left in the shop.
Like you
And I
said,
think
it all can be solved if you up the stakes for him where he needs to,
Yeah.
like at all costs, he needs to go there, and I think that would work. And what's his reason why he's so like? I think he sees that he's following them as they are together.
Yeah,
Or what-
he's following them, and he knows like Nick Nolte's character is basically cutting him loose. And you said you mentioned Baby Driver, and for me, Ansel Elgort's character, who has to pay off Kevin Spacey's character, I feel like at that point, even though they like imagine if Chris Hemsworth already has paid off Nick Nolte's character, and I feel like they just have continued working on,
Mhm.
and I feel like that's their phase.
Yeah.
And now Chris Hemsworth is basically in a spot where he can cut Nick Nolte loose, but Nick Nolte doesn't want to. And I do like the fact that he's clearly had a lot of loyalty to Nick Nolte's character from when he was young. He's probably learned to trade from him, but it's all insinuated. Again, this is all just
I
theory.
think yeah. There's also no connection between him and Barry, right? That like there could be, but they are
Yeah.
disconnected. You could interweave those a bit more, but yeah, they're a bit separated.
My question to you is: how many days do you think they shot in that yoga studio?
I think it was one. That was the one
I
day.
think it's two
I think it's
maximum. The
I
amount of scenes we had in that yoga studio, and we
Yeah.
just kept returning to it, and I just felt like it's still the same day.
Yeah, I mean, it's yoga time, man. It can be any time of day. It would always look the same. Yeah, no, I mean, I think his thing with Halle Berry, which was like loosely, is it going into the romantic route, was a bit peculiar. It was like almost like these two deserve a secondary plot that is more than just their roles and their respective like jobs. And I also like the beat with Halle Berry, where she's like, ooh, stands up and wants to do her thing, and then is like realizing with the reality of the situation that she'd rather backtrack pretty immediately. We haven't talked about it yet, although we're fully into spoilers. What did you think about the ending and like that whole like hotel sequence?
Could have used some tightening up. The same as I said with that shop scene. It's like, so okay, you have Mark Ruffalo's character. They just have this random naming movies. Hey, what's your Steve McQueen movie? Mine is Bullet, because I drive cars really well. And then it's like, mine is the Thomas Crown Affair. It's where he's a thief. Like, guys, we get it. We get it.
And then he goes
feels,
like, "Oh, I haven't seen that one."
it feels like that scene in Freaky Tales, because I've seen it like circling around on social media again, where Tom Hanks is like saying those top 5 underdog movies, and he's just talking about movies. It felt like that same sort of scene.
I think during that scene, Letterboxd was probably in like the seat next to them, asking like, "So what are the movies that inspired this?"
But the hotel scene, it's a bit all over the place, but it's also supposed to be chaotic and messy. And then you got the rich girlfriend and the guy thing, like, oh my god, but I'm not gonna say anything because tax evasion. It's like, okay, sure. This movie all over the place is for me a 7 out of 10. Like, even Chris Hemsworth lives at the beach. Every time we have like, he was in his apartment at the beach, I was like, please put a blue filter over this. And it just feels like he.
Well, I feel like that whole ending, all of it, is a bit of a power fantasy that we do hold any power over the rich and wealthy. Which we don't in reality. Like, oh no, you threatened me with tax evasion? Bitch, the president is doing it. So like, come on, man. It's not like I don't know how much a then detective in on the LA police force can actually feel like he can usurp that guy with the threats that he makes. And the same goes to like how easily in a way Chris Hemsworth's character can like escape all of this.
And it's also like Mark Ruffalo's character is off work, like he's suspended normally, so he really shouldn't have any power to begin with because he's off work.
Yeah. Also, I don't really like the thing of, you know, Chris shooting Barry off screen, and for a second you're like wondering, oh, who got shot? I didn't really see a way of him like getting. I would have
I
liked to
do
have
think
seen
he
that.
conveys that. I do think he conveys that a bit. A few seconds later after we see him, I do think there's clearly some shock.
No,
in
I
his
don't.
face
I don't
of
mean. I
having
don't mean
shot someone.
how the scene emotionally feels. It's just I would like to see that moment of him disarming and shooting him, and I don't really feel like it's more effective. It's easier to shoot if you stick on Ruffalo's character, but
Yeah.
I felt like let's go. We've seen this guy be more in the eyes of someone else, a bit more like how effective he is and how clean he is. Let's show him like with that physical side that he can do that too.
You know what I was wondering? So here's the scenario. He has to explain to the police. Barry Keoghan's character walked in. I shot him. And
Well,
here's my thing.
yeah.
He has blood on himself. Like,
Yeah,
shouldn't the exit and the exit wound,
Yeah,
the
no.
bullet wound?
I know. I was thinking it makes no sense. It's like really hard to explain. But then at the same in the same vein, it's like using. It's like the whole movie is sort of that. Like the other action that the police does that's big in this movie is like shooting the supposed killer and then placing a gun on him that he had on him but wasn't on him actually.
It was in the back.
Yeah. And with the testimony of people in there, you can actually twist the truth quite a bit. And even though with forensics, they would uncover that this isn't true. I don't know, the cover up. We don't really know to the extent unless someone. Sorry, not a political show, but it's become more and more important that you need to point a camera at every single thing from 20 different angles, and you can still deny, and people be held accountable can still be hard then. Imagine what happens in the closed room, right? So, like, you feel like it's outrageous. It's like, no way to get away with it. Look, in the real world, people are getting away with it. It's crazy. So, yeah.
Also, if we can mention Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Hey,
yeah. I'm here in one scene. I'm the divorced wife.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
I get to keep the house. Okay, sure, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do love Nick Nolte. Can I just say, whenever Nick Nolte appears on the screen in movies nowadays, I'm always like, thank you. Like, you're such a good actor. Yeah. I know I love you in Warrior, but like, he's done so many other good movies. And whenever he's on screen, he has such a presence. Yeah. Absolutely love him.
Can it be that he has 4 scenes in this film at max? I don't think he has more.
Yeah. That sounds accurate. At least twice in the bar and twice with Barry Keoghan in the car. So like at least 4.
Yeah. That's true. The variety, 2 and 2.
We were like before the podcast thing, like just Nick Nolte has a condition because he was like quite shaking a bit and maybe sometimes uttering his dialogue. And even in Die My Love, he also looked like, a man that was a bit ill. So it's like, does he have Parkinson or something? I'm not gonna, say he does, but I'm just wondering if he does. Because nowadays actors talk about that so openly with Bruce Willis and his dementia. So I was just wondering if Nick Nolte having something as well.
Yeah, it could just be a variety of different things that he could be struggling through. I mean, he is getting up there in age quite a bit.
How old is he?
He was born in 40. He's like 85 or something, or 84.
85, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully he's well. He's such a interesting presence on screen. So hopefully we see him in more roles. I think in supporting, you feel like he fits into like a sort of box when it comes to the look that he has, but he has shown time and time again that he has brings a lot of layers to the character he portrays, or like the roles that he takes that actually offer him that as well. And I think this one definitely didn't have that.
No,
this was a bit more one note, but yeah.
I feel like it was a bit wanting to be James Gandolfini. You know how he can have that gangster Killing Me Softly, The Drop, that sort of thing. I feel like maybe you should have gone for that type of presence. But I'm glad Nick Nolte was in this movie. Anyway, I think we've sort of talked about Crime 101. I think it's a very solid movie. Yeah. Oftentimes a bit derivative in the way of, Michael Mann, even Fincher with the way that he's rubbing off all his hair, all his DNA, like dead skin on the mat to avoid any DNA on the crime scenes. It is a bit undercooked, but at least it's bringing up some themes that make the movie interesting and not just your regular action slop that comes on the streaming services these days. I am happy this got a theatrical streaming. I'm happy this got a theatrical release, and I hope it does well on streaming after. But maybe the runtime will spook people.
It's also a tough release window. Not everywhere. Like, for example, Goat comes out the week after, and this comes out this week for me, alongside Wuthering Heights. But it's a very stacked weekend for like people going out on Valentine's Day. Goat being the one that's like in between of like, oh, we actually don't want to see Wuthering Heights, so like, if our date movie is going to be Crime 101 or Goat, I feel like more people will skew towards Goat because it's also got that basketball tie-in. So I feel like this movie will probably go under quite a bit. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Which is a shame.
Which is a bit of a shame, yeah. It's just a stacked week for movie releases. And it's even a movie that doesn't release for the two of us, I believe, at the moment. But there's a...
Jason Statham?
Then Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, or what's it called?
I thought it was next week.
That comes out. That actually in the States it comes out this week.
Wow, this week. Mm-hmm. Damn.
It's a very, very
and then you got the Jason Statham Shelter movie as well.
Yeah.
My God. Busy times.
Busy times. Did you already say your rating? I'm giving it a solid 7 out of 10 overall.
I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 as well. Maybe it would be a bit higher to support the movie, like a 7.4 out of 10, something, not just not that I can round it up to 8.
Yeah, for me it would be a little more, towards lower side of 7.
Because again, I'm glad that we are getting movies like this, and I would again prefer a few movies like this over the monthly action streaming slop like we got recently with Wrecking Crew.
It feels like you get your mandated dose of Prisoner, here's your slop, and this feels a bit more there was an intentionality behind it. A bit more of a drive.
Which doesn't surprise me coming from Bart Layton. You really should watch American Animals, though. You really should.
I will actually. I've had that movie on my radar, but now it's back on top of the list. The list is long.
Let's go.
It's back on the list. But let us know what you thought of the film, and let's move on to spotlight reviews, because there's a few films to talk about as well. Kevin, you got something to spotlight this week?
Yeah, I actually do. Last week I did miss a few movies. Like I said, I haven't watched no movies. I did watch Nuremberg, which I thought was a serviceable movie. At times it does feel like a fucking Avengers edited movie. It's like, hopefully we don't get any problems. And then the next shot is like, we got problems. Like, guys, so can we not do this, please?
Yeah. Also, Russell Crowe's German is horrible. Horrible.
Wait. You speak Swiss German. I'll believe an actual German's opinion.
No, I do speak German as well. It's like it's not very different.
Okay.
But I don't know Nazi Germans, if you're asking that. Not familiar with that.
But the actual spotlight for this week is The Last One for the Road.
Can you say that in Italian?
La città di pianura. I aced that shit. You're pissed I aced that shit.
I'm not pissed. I'm just curious if you're accurate, because my Italian is as dog shit as yours. So we'll have to hear once again. Please leave us a score.
we like to clown on Italian movies. This movie did debut at the Venice Film Festival, I think. So.
No, in Cannes.
Oh no, it didn't. Oh, it debuted in Cannes. Alright, cool.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Cannes, but you were probably like, an Italian movie at Cannes. Hell no.
This was not on my radar at all, actually.
Oh, really?
I don't know what section it premiered in, but yeah, I missed this.
I actually really like this movie. I wrote in my one-line review, actually a very fun hangout movie, and it totally is. You got two older guys who are constantly looking for the last one, which they are referring to like one last beer, one more. Let's never actually end this little adventure we got going. And at a certain point, they pick up a young architect student who is celebrating, their graduation is coming up, and they're sort of already celebrating. There's one girl that he likes that he tries to make moves on, but he's shy. Other guys are making advances on her. So he basically hangs out with these two older dudes that are, like drunkards, trying to relive the old times. And it is such a fun movie. And as the older guys reminiscent about their younger times, you got the actor who plays the architect student filling in because they have a third old friend that isn't here. So you got the young architecture student filling in as the younger third friend, which that is just a choice that feels fun. Right. And we've seen so many of these movies. Whenever they do flashbacks, it's like younger, like not as good actors that don't really look alike. And this one actually makes it fun. And there are so many funny jokes in this. Google Maps, like so many funny jokes that I just can't remember at the moment.
Is he better than he is in the American Backyard, the lead?
What?
He's also in The Hand.
Oh,
he was
he
was the lead in the American Backyard. If you remember, that's
I don't remember him at all. But I've erased that movie from my mind.
Isn't it him in the cage at the end? That movie is like it's the one
You-
movie
you
where
and-
we
you and-
I
you
feel
and-
like we were the least professional in Venice. If there's a one reason that we get kicked out of that festival, it's our behavior during the screening of the American Backyard. Because people were taking the movie so seriously, and it was so bad that like we could not stop laughing.
No. But the last one for the road, you know what? He has redeemed himself.
Okay.
Even though I do not remember his performance in the at all.
Mhm.
Very fun ending as well. Because in the beginning they're like, I forgot it. I forgot the secret of the world. And it's like, yeah, we were so drunk last night. And then it also becomes a gag to the movie. Really fun Italian movie. Who would have thought that I would be watching an Italian movie outside of Venice that I would adore?
It's crazy. Jinx.
For the rest, I have not watched a movie. Except
Well, he was
Wuthering Heights.
also the lead in. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. He was also the lead in Sorrentino's The Hand of God. Estate la mano di Dio.
Oh, that's why you wanted to. Yeah. I see you.
I want a ranking as well. Italians, let me know how we did. Especially preferably put me on top of Kevin.
Actually,
sorry,
if
not
any
for-
of us. Oh, okay.
I meant score wise. I didn't mean.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
mean in this wise.
No, it's fine. We're moving on. I haven't watched any other movies because I am finishing up the montage as Ewan is editing it. Maybe it'll be out a few days after this podcast comes out, like maybe Sunday or whatever. So after this week's episode, brother, I'm gonna be watching movies again. So I have a way longer spotlight section than these past few weeks.
Yeah,
but I do have something to mention.
Not open. No questions. No questions. Like no further questions. The montage will be out. That sort of.
The
thing.
montage will be
Like,
out.
Yeah.
But I have a YouTube video to shout out. I know, right? So weird. I have watched this video a few times over the past few days, especially, if like I'm rendering out a certain section. And it's Jacob Collier improvises with Orchestra live in San Francisco. And I sent you the video as well. And it's just so wonderful and like healing. There's all types of ages in the audiences, from little kids to just regular people to older people. It's not even like a full boomer crowd as I would reference it. And the way that he interacts with the musicians, actually saying like, and now this, and now that, and you see the musicians having fun because in orchestra you have to stick to that sheet music, you have to stick to the tempo. So you also see the musicians sort of lighting up with the like smiles and just being happy, and then you got the audience like singing along with it. And I just found it such a beautiful and heartwarming video that I want to share it on a movie podcast. I know it's so weird, but it's out there. You watched it as well, right?
I didn't watch the full. I honestly didn't. I don't want to step on your thunder, but I didn't really like it that much. Like, I'm sorry. I didn't. It didn't do it for me. I was like, yep, I'm over this. Let me get back to watching slot movies. But it's very nice. I get all the things you said just now. Yes.
The way that I just want to walk out of this room right now, man.
Come on. We don't have to like the same things. I think it's a sweet thing. It's like the thing he does with like the improvised, performance of a song. I really don't really. It's impressive. I don't really care for it. So
the way you were literally singing the song before we recorded this, though.
What song?
Every breath you take, you were literally singing that before.
Oh, right. That's just a song. That's not him doing me. I wasn't.
Okay.
But I like the song. I like the song. I like the original song. Sorry. Yeah. No. Now we're on bad terms.
You do your monologue.
God damn it! I'll incorporate you for a little while. One other film that is like one of the big releases of the week is Tyree Dillahay's Goat, a movie about a goat who wants to be a goat.
Crazy.
Yeah, because it's like they have the term, GOAT, greatest of all time. That's being thrown around, especially if you talk
Roger
Federer,
Michael Jordan.
Yeah. Right.
Tiger Woods.
Yes. And this goat.
Serena Williams.
So yeah. Okay,
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Okay. Sure.
Let me quickly look up some more goats. You talk.
It's almost like he's turning like to a Kiwi guy the way he's looking up goats right now. But yeah, this one is a animated movie that is like aiming at families in the way that it sort of depicts that dream of like dream big. You're like in a world where you're small and they're like there's the big animals and they play in the league because the league is tough. They play this version of basketball that is called Roar Ball. The stages that they play it in is like it originated from a place where they haven't won a championship in just so long. And they have the number one draft player who's like one that's supposed to bring the greatness back to that like community, but she never ends up living to the title and has actually choked at one time to win the final game. It then is like, I feel like very, in kids movie plot terms, reiterating the same point again and again to emphasize it further, to create more, emotional attachment to it, to ultimately lead to a happy ending payoff. I feel like that is sort of what you can expect, and I wouldn't even consider that a spoiler. Like, what else do you expect from a kids movie? But in between, it is that Sony animation that has stood out with the projects like the Mitchells versus the Machines, Spider-Man and Across the Spider-Verse, but giving it its own style, and also specifically for this, its own vernacular in the way that it, takes a lot of like very current very current Gen Z way of speaking about things, like how you would be talking about sports, and especially like from the like black communities in America who like obviously are like predominantly in that sport, like the usually the best players as well. It also incorporates rap culture, and to me it's like always a bit odd when something so like culturally significant or just like within culture gets so commercialized into a product, especially in animation, because there is like further levels of construction that you have to go into. But I also see that it's like great to have that sort of representation of that sort of vernacular, and that like I don't know how, like apart from Space Jam, how many like great basketball movies we get where like there was some melding between animation and like what I mean in I know we get great basketball movies, Kevin. I was tripping him out right there, but like here it's like fully in animation, right? It's like we get the first slam dunk, right, in an anime where you have something that is really thrilling, that's focusing on the game itself. Beautiful. If you haven't seen that, I'd honestly put that way above GOAT, but this movie is pretty solid too. Like, it's got its archetypes, it's got its quirky set of characters, and at the root of it all, you got an underdog story. And someone we always love to shout out is Aaron Pierre, who plays like the main antagonist.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he has like also something that they already published was early on. There's like a one-on-one where our lead goes up against him, Will Harris. after that, like, at one point he does make it into the league, and then it's like him dropping a diss track like on him, and I thought it was like at every level this should be very cringy, but Aaron Pierre is like, even just his voice is such a presence. He's great. He needs to be in more projects. And then it's great that Caleb McLachlan is getting something different to do outside of the, I guess, Stranger Things universe. He also was in another basketball movie from Soderbergh, High Flying Bird. But I can't remember exactly what role he had. I think it was a smaller role. But I mean, solid all around. You got the familiar names of like Patton Oswalt, David Harbour, Nick Kroll has been doing more. Jennifer Hudson who's been doing a lot of like, I guess, voice work. And I think it's a very fine movie. I was very entertained. I was pleasantly surprised. Actually gave this like a 6.5, 7 out of 10 is rating wise. If you want to have, a family movie to watch and you like basketball, it's pretty fun.
Will this make the top 5 animated movies in the Oscars this year? Because you have to know it's like Sony Animation, and from what I can see,
I think
they have no other movies this year.
Well, we got Toy Story 5, which is basically a lock-in. Minions can go fuck itself. Super Mario Bros. Movie, I guess that's the other one that's very like big that I could see make it in there. What's then we got at
least 2 little indie animated movies that are gonna make it as well. You have to be aware of that.
I think it really depends if Pixar like has 2, if they have Hoppers and they have
talking about Hoppers, I told you this, but I don't know if you remember. Do you know what the title is of Hoppers here in Belgium?
Oh, you sent me the thing, but I was like, wait, what am I looking at? And then I think I didn't read Jumpers. Yes,
it's called Jumpers. I don't know why
is
we
it
had
because
to
of hop, like the ingredient to be like the like. Do you feel like it gets confusing for people?
No clue.
Like there was like the after movies. There was like a trilogy of films like the fan fiction smut thing, and they changed the title here from after to that because after also means asshole in German. So they were like they can't have the like asshole something. But no one says after.
Ewan, it's not getting in. I can already confirm you. This is not.
You think
Goat
so?
is not making it in. So you mentioned Super Mario. You mentioned Toy Story. We also have we got Wildwood, Like as Wildwood this year. Come on, man.
Maybe. I don't know. It's really tough to say with that movie if it will resonate.
We got Cat in the Hat. We got Angry Birds 3. We have Hexed. And let's see what other movies get out of Annecy, the animation festival as well.
I think like that's why I was like hesitating to answer your question. I think it's like I would say it's probably the number 5 spot as we speak right now. Looking at the lineup, it could very much move up, maybe 1 or 2 spots.
I think it's gonna move down.
More likely, will be at like number 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No goat Oscar for a goat.
And I mean, it's got like fun phrases. It's ultimately is about like, community and like how community is there for you, even if you're down or especially when you're down, and the root support that you've established. Like it has a ton of these like allegories that are, I think that is sort of the beautiful thing about animation, especially kids animation, when you have a story that is easy to follow, but then you resonate on like a simple plot level of like this aspirational story of making it, of winning something. And then as you grow older and maybe like revisit some of these stories, you get maybe the more nuanced truths about something that you can like hide away, or like not even hide away, but they're very apparent, but they don't really show, like aren't as apparent to you maybe as a kid. And I think this movie does that well, of like, having a bit of everything in there, and pretty solid entertainment. A good start to the year, I think, with like the first couple of movies that we've gotten. This is not the GOAT of the year, of course, but like also doesn't make sense to say GOAT of the year. I just realized, because like, it's greatest of all time, not just of the year, but we also say something is GOATed, which doesn't make any sense, because you say it's greatest of all timed, which I don't know.
You know what I want from you right now?
So much, baby.
Look, we're already 1 hour and almost 30 minutes into this podcast. I mean, of recording, and you already have done the Wuthering Heights section with Lachlan. So I want right now the most goated one from you of running through 6 movies and just getting to the essence of them, like delivering me the creme de la creme about what's good about them, what's great about them, what's bad about them. I don't know, but action.
Joan of Arc is basically a companion piece to The Love That Remains, a 1-hour story of Jóhanna of Arc by Hilnir Palmensen. And we already loved his movie, the Love That Remains, and I give this the same rating, a 9 out of 10, because I think it's such an extension of sort of what they went through in a year just by a one shot of them constructing the sort of figurine that they end up shooting arrows at, and the sort of fights that the two boys have. And you often see these like the two boys in isolation, sometimes even the teenage girl. And I think it's such a wonderful depiction of like where I'm constantly questioning what is real and how much is directed versus them just like, you know, having that place and just the camera being there at all times. It's blending the sort of documentary with fiction so well that I really, really had a great time. I think if you just, you know, it's also something fun to have on and just check in every now and then and have it on a loop. Joan of Arc, really, really fun stuff.
Criterion Channel.
On the Criterion Channel. Then Defending Your Life. You have referenced this movie quite a few times over the last couple of weeks as we talked about films by Collier like Afterlife. And we talked about Eternity a bunch, that like the ways that it reminds you of this 1991 Albert Brooks movie, who also which also stars Meryl Streep on these
the GOAT,
them meeting in this sort of in between place of Afterlife that is basically a holding place for you to either move up, move further into a sort of, I don't know what the place is that you move into, because some of the people are like end up working there as well, or you have another go around on Earth, and sort of defending your life in a way of like, did you make, ultimately this movie is like, did you make the choices that were best for you? Because what means to use more than 4% of your brain is to make the choices that benefit you, to live life without fear, to live a life full of love and not rooted in sort of self-pity or self-hatred or at a loss of confidence of what you think you actually deserve. And I think at its core, that is a great message. I think it is a bit convoluted in like, you know, sort of the limitations a story like this has. I told you this, Kevin. I'm so ready for this movie to be remade. In a way, I think it could be a really interesting take, like one of the few films that I feel like 35 years later, it could be very interesting to look at that. You said Eternity sort of did that. I feel like you could like straight up look a bit closer at actually defending your life and remake it and have some interesting like different ways to go about it. It also could be the most annoying film you've seen that year. Really hard to gauge, but really enjoyed that. Gave that like an 8 out of 10. I know you really like it too. I don't know what you also like, an 8, 9 out of 10 for that one, right? You really like it too.
I think I gave it a 4.5. Yeah, I gave it a 4.5. I think, let me quickly see. I gave Lost in America 4.5. So I don't remember which movie I prefer. I gave Modern Romance a 4 out of 5, but I think I like Defending Your Life just a bit more than Lost in America. But I love both movies. I think Albert Brooks is such a good director, especially after watching his documentary. So I'm gonna guess you're gonna watch Real Life now or Modern Romance, and then you're gonna watch the Rob Reiner documentary of Albert Brooks, perhaps, if you're gonna continue with this run.
Maybe. I don't know if I was looking at continuing the run with Albert Brooks specifically, but maybe, yeah. It's not next.
I mean, it hasn't made many movies, so you're almost there. You're practically halfway.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of someone who hasn't made a ton of movies, but some of them left an impact, Peter Bogdanovich Like I watched his movie from 1973 last year, Paper Moon. And I think it was like in that in between period where we weren't doing the podcast, so I never talked about it. But then also this week I caught up with The Last Picture Show, a film similar to Defending Your Life. I think that often this a bit more than Defending Your Life pops up on a lot of people's letterbox top 4 with the celebrities that they do ask it. Maybe the ones that are like a bit older, but also because this movie, which centers around like a small town in like 1951, as the Korean War rages in the background, and these small towns are sort of upheld by not institutions but people that have stuck around, and sort of these places that showcase community and like as like through labor holding them together. Sees a group of graduating high schoolers who are trying to stay connected, trying to just score, hook up, but also like there's this underlying sadness through The Last Picture Show that is like really, really haunting. How bleak this world 20 years later in 71, right? It's like a 20-year difference of when the story takes place and when it was like when it was first screened. That was like, it was pretty haunting. Like I think I didn't connect with it like on a very deep level, but I could see that like if this is like one of your all-time favorites, I totally see why, if someone has that reaction to it. It didn't come up all the way to that level, but I think it was like really well performed, like so well written, well shot as well, with a lot of intentionality. And I was like, it's really rare that we ever get to see one of these movies, and I feel like nowadays you do really see pretty much none of them that like would live up to like sort of what this movie represents of like a time and capturing it in this way. And I know you like it a lot as well. You gave it like a 9 out of 10 too.
Yeah, I absolutely adore The Last Picture Show, and I actually adore Bogdanovich as the director as well. I've watched, funnily enough, his 3 most popular movies on Letterboxd: Paper Moon, The Last Picture Show, and What's Up, Doc. Mm-hmm. All 3 are fantastic across the board. And what I remember the most about The Last Picture Show is saying to a friend of mine, like, this is one of the best black and white movies I've ever seen in terms of like using black and white. I think it's stellar. I watched there's a restoration of it right now. I don't know if I watched the restoration or I watched the original like Blu-ray version of it, but I remember saying like, this black and white is just
it's
absolutely
stunning.
Gorgeous.
And it's stunning. Like so unassuming in this small town that doesn't really have something spectacular. It's not like it's like in Colorado, like along the mountains of this. It's like the most dynamic thing you'll get to see is towards the end of the film, which I don't want to spoil what happens there, but like a ball of, what are they called? Like the dust balls that just like
wheelbarrow? No.
No, wheelbarrow would be different. But it's like the thing that goes across. I don't know.
Yeah.
People know what I mean. Something like that happening. But I think this is the sort of movie where for a lot of it you come in with this expectation of so many people love it and connect with it on a deeper level. And I think just in the same year that can be difficult, but especially for a movie that has, released almost 60 years ago, or 55 years ago. Yeah, Tumbleweed. It can be tough to then also connect with it on the same level, because it feels like a movie has to win you over or like justify how beloved it is at some point. And I think it clicked with me, during that scene of like The Last Picture Show, in a way where it felt this movie feels so fleeting at times, where you almost want to shake the characters and it's like, hold on to this. This is an important moment. Why are you not realizing how significant it is right now?
Why are you not present?
Yeah, why are you not as present as you could be, man? And it's like, I was like, no, I've done that like countless times in my own life where I wasn't appreciating that in the moment, and I might even forget it and even realize later on, not having realized right now how important that was. And I think that's such a like core thing about the human experience, tying that in a movie that is also very loosely not even about movies at all. It's not like that's just one aspect of it all, but like then that moment really hit home in this film. And it comes kind of unexpected. Also, early Jeff Bridges role. Shout out to him.
There are so many early Jeff Bridges roles.
I know there are. But I think I haven't seen like the other movie that you mentioned from Bogdanovich, but I think I'll watch Targets next because it was his debut. So
I haven't watched Targets yet.
Maybe we can make a week out of it where we both watch it at the same time. Let's go. Yeah. All right. I'm keeping it a bit more brief for the next one. Because I think you haven't seen all the
I don't know. I don't know if much has been said about this next movie though. Like maybe you just need to elaborate on it. I don't really know.
What, you don't know what the movie is about?
Yeah. No. What's well?
All the President's Men by Alan J. Pakula. Starring Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman as these two reporters who are like following up on the Watergate scandal and actually like uncovering it in a way. It's straight up that like journalism movie that 10 years ago. What was it? What was it? The Post or like it was like back to back.
Spotlight.
And Spotlight. We got like two movies, the Best Picture movies. Where we want to celebrate good journalism of uncovering something, right? It's like the thing is, a movie like this doesn't need to be complicated. It is compelling just for the sake of like what it's about, and because it feels big. I think it's like it's like incredibly solid, and usually like an incredibly solid movie caps out at like a certain level of score wise. But I think this just kind of shoots past it in a way. And I give this like a 9 out of 10. I think it's a must watch for anyone on this earth. I think you should see this film, and it's kind of crazy that it took me this long to watch it. And what is surprising about it as well, it's about the investigation, like, and Watergate, like 1972, and then not 4 years later we get this really rigorous closer look at it. And I don't know how, like, we often take that having moved so far past it now 50 years later, of like how crazy it is to like represent something a few years later in such a great way. And I'm itching for like a good movie about our current times that obviously we got something like that is slightly more fictional with PTAs like One Battle After Another, but
you also got the movie a few years ago, She Said. That one, The Post, Spotlight. We do have like a few journalists.
Journalism. I guess One Battle After Another would really not be. I meant more like current times and.
Like that. Right.
Yeah. Journalism movies. There are a few good ones. I think even just something like Aloha Poitras. Why am I blanking on the name right now?
Cover Up. Yeah. Oh, does Hirsch appear?
Where's Hirsch here? But yeah, shout out to that movie. And then
look, I own it, but I haven't seen it yet. But I own it though, I'm
just going to ignore you whenever you say that. There's like a faint like dust, wind going past, just like the amount of times you
tumbleweed.
Exactly, tumbleweed. Then I got early access to a film that we ended up missing actually last year in Venice because it was playing in one of the smaller sections. That we watched all the films in competition in Horizonte and Spotlight
Horizonte
section.
Extra.
Exactly. Yeah. We basically cover all of them, right, for our thing. But then there's also these side sections that aren't like Ghana's. Them two most festivals have like little bit
Giorni del Autori.
Yeah, exactly. Like the offer like that isn't curated specifically, I think, by like the Venice representatives, but some outside thing. And it's like crazy that A Sad and Beautiful World kind of slipped through our coverage because it definitely sounds like something I'd be interested in, because it's basically this love story between these two school friends in Lebanon who grew up together, fell in love as kids, and then got separated early on. Like the movie literally opens with like one of them being born, or like I think it actually makes a point of them being born the same day. Something like that. I don't quote me on that. The movie also in Switzerland is not coming out until September. I hope it gets a earlier release in some places, but I'm really early with this. But I guess it also premiered in Venice, so like it's somewhere halfway in between. It looks stunning. It's this like love story that is like going through either extremes of a character that is overly optimistic, or at least at the surface is very much doing that and going through life that way. One who is more nihilistic, more realistic about the world and the future, and has also seen more than the world in Lebanon, who's been abroad and comes back, and one who's always stayed there. And I think it's such a poignant story that is like rooted in love and that deep emotional connection that you want to have with someone and share your life with someone. And then you wonder over like the surrounding circumstances that allow you to actually live your love, and how much of your surroundings actually influence your capability to fully live your life. And I got a lot out of this. I think it's really, really beautiful film. Rating wise, I'm like at a 7 out of 10 for it. I think it's really solid, but definitely gets a whole lot of recommendation from my end. And then lastly, something that I just finished before we started recording today, just so I can finish my catch up on all of the Oscar stuff. I watched Cutting Through Rocks, a movie about like contemporary Iran right now, where a 37-year-old called Sarah Shaverdi runs for local office and ends up winning in a landslide in that like local election. And then she is basically introduced in the way that like what she is and why she is that way that she is in a small community, like coming up through her dad, who wanted a son at the time, and instead of to help on the farm, and took her along to maybe do more of the roles that you wouldn't traditionally do as a woman, and that gave her the confidence and perspective as well to enable those views on other women in her community. And like a lot of the focus of the film ends up being about this 12-year-old who has been recently married and divorced again, just to be like married immediately once more, and a person who's like grasping onto her, by the way, she's 12 and the person she's married to 35. She says at one point the same age as her dad. So that's crazy. And that just goes at every term. She's basically not so subtly told to like uphold the role of the woman, to like fit in. This is our tradition. You don't get to be like this as a woman. I think it's the way that it's told, like story wise, it's interesting because like it opens with her being enraged and like screaming at someone about something, and you feel like, she's a lot. She's loud. Is that all she's going to be? Loud and outraged, where that's sort of a thing that like is often brought against women in that way, to dismiss an actual plea that they have just because you show outward emotion about something that probably you've pent up for years and years and decades. Then you're to be more easily dismissed. You're emotional. You're like crazy. And I think it really shows you in a closer way of how she's trying to navigate that, to actually bring about change in our community, and how futile and actually impossible it is to shake these structures, to cut through these rocks that have been laid deep in the land and have been sort of ingrained in these especially remote villages around the land. Really well made documentary, pretty solid. I gave that a 7 out of 10. Definitely one that hopefully benefits from that Oscar nomination. Shout out that more people will see it. I don't think it has a shot at winning the Oscar, but hopefully more people seek it out because of it.
So you're going to all the Oscar-nominated movies. When are you watching Diane Warren Relentless?
Well, it's got to be next week. Promise.
Oh, you promised?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. Would you pinky swear?
In a tragic accident when I last snapped, I actually lost both my pinkies. So maybe at a further time, maybe a later date. Let's put a pin in it. I don't have pinkies. Anyways,
as he shows his pinkies, you could have done a better. You could have done a better job hiding them. What the fuck?
It's my devil horns, It's like, I'm the devil. Anyways,
is that your segue
to what? Well, to Wuthering Heights. Oh my God, that would have been a good segue. It's totally unintentional. Now, before we actually move on to our Spotlight World Cinema, reminder to join our Discord, subscribe, leave a like. Let us know what you've been watching, your opinions. The comment section is basically free for you to, put
Abuses.
everything there. Hopefully something positive, hopefully something constructive, hopefully something that is interesting for us to engage with, not just like, you guys suck, but you do you, man. It's whatever you want.
Let's talk about Wuthering Heights. Which version? I don't know.
The only version that was I guess palpable to Kevin was the one that's the Asian version of Wuthering Heights. That's how you get into it.
I knew it. I knew you were going this direction, you motherfucker. You motherfucker.
No, actually, the Spotlight World Cinema is kind of perfect for something like Wuthering Heights, which has been adapted into teleplays, into movies, into miniseries. There's 20 plus adaptations of the story. And I think in the nature of what the story is, you can't truly adapt it, but I truly believe that this is the closest that we'll probably get to it, the way, the sort of feeling, which is interesting because the original story by Emily Bronte takes place in 1840s or 50s or around that, like in that time span. That's when it was written, and I think that's when it takes place in, roughly. And this version, which obviously doesn't star Catherine or Heathcliff, those names would maybe stand out a bit in the Japanese version. We instead get a story that is told in feudal, in medieval Japan, roughly. I'd assume, from what I could find out online, is around the 12th or 13th century, so not in the 1850s. And maybe let's read from the synopsis so you get an understanding of, maybe you're familiar, you've maybe even seen Wuthering Heights, if you're on this video later on, or maybe you skip through, you're like, oh, I fucking hate Emerald Fennell. Let's talk about a real adaptation of Wuthering Heights. And that's why you're here. Welcome. Ooh, we hate her. Anyways, young Kino, sorry. I'm so extra today. Young Kino Yamabe is drawn to lowborn Onimaru, who is vital and charismatic, but viewed by his father as a demon. After her first period, Kino suffers the fate of any woman born near the sacred mountain. She must leave the mountain and serve as a priestess. And that's a story that is, it's interesting because we're talking about Wuthering Heights. You haven't read the book. You haven't watched this most recent adaptation of it. You actually haven't watched any adaptation other than this, so you got no context.
No clue
before
what it
we
is.
even compare it to the history, which is so loaded and charged, of all the people who've read it and have opinions about any of the adaptations, just overall, to the movie itself. Like, what did you think about Wuthering Heights 1988?
I told you, bro, this movie is fucking bleak. My God, dude. Obviously, I've heard a lot of things about Wuthering Heights. I've heard a lot about how the new movie, you guys just discussed it. I heard a lot about how the movie was very sensual, how the story doesn't, really take place in there. It's loosely inspired. And you've also told me beforehand, a lot of the adaptations only take half of the story. And I'm gonna guess that half of the story is basically the original romance, in this case between Kinu and Onimaru, and then you got the later generations, I guess, that are the back half of the story. That's as far as I know. It's not like I have no clue about Wuthering Heights. Like I have done a bit of research, right? Not as extensively compared to you, but fair enough.
Who can though? Flicking my hair away.
The only thing I will say, though, my God, the children in this movie, I sent you a screenshot of the moment the baby was born. It's
yeah,
it's holding by her feet, and the other time they're this movie is so bleak, violent at times, especially bloody. Great, I will say. Great blood splatter in this movie. My God,
yeah.
Sometimes it's fucking.
The cut off hand to me was also out of nowhere. It was so crazy. I gotta say, this movie at times reminds me a bit more of, especially towards the back end, a bit more of Hamlet than it does of Wuthering Heights. It definitely, goes into a different direction that is feels a bit more Japanese in the focus. I say maybe that it's the best adaptation of this book, of this story, but I think it's also nowhere near close to a faithful adaptation. I think none of them truly are. I think the one that's probably the closest is the one with Ralph Fiennes from 1992, but it's also one of the ones that I like the least. That one does the whole story. That's one of the it's one of I guess one of the few that actually does the whole story. That's why. And I think a lot of these don't go into the nuance of the sort of because this book, obviously it's a really false advertisement with, this is just a love story here. But the story itself is more like further pulled away, all told through one of the people working for them, Nellie, in the story. Who gives you context who's also played by Hong Zhao in the new version, but that she takes a more active role. In this, she is, in all of the movie versions, she's always played as like the good servant who just has the best at heart for all of these. And I think this story itself feels a bit more, at least reading it like in 2026, it feels way more of like a critique of the social structure than it does like as a love story. And I think it's also one of the books, that has a bit suffered but also benefited from being so overanalyzed, because there's a lot to dig into in the story, like especially because it's multi-generational. Like the guy holds a grudge for more than one generation and lets it out on the people next up. And I think it's interesting because Emerald Fennell in like interviews describes this as like, well, maybe it was the interviewer said that, but like Heathcliff as an anti-hero. And I'm like, brother, I wouldn't say hero to this guy ever. It is a bit conflicted because it's
compared to this one in 1988 version, my god.
Yeah. And I think most of the stories do away with like at one point showing them in love, and I think this version doesn't really bother with that too much. Right? Because like the way that she goes off to, which isn't like a bit of a divergence from the book as well. It also makes the guy she ends up marrying, who's Edgar Linton, like the Lintons, makes him no clue who that is, a cousin. And there's a lot of cousin fucking in the story like later on. We don't need it from the first go around already. A lot of interest.
Hey, this movie saves it for the end.
Yes, exactly. That's how incest should be. Save it for the end. I think it's like the bleakness that I feel like the story sort of needs. It is accurately depicted in this film. And maybe it helps to just take place earlier. It kind of weaves it into the context of feudal Japan kind of naturally, right? It does make sense. Like in all of the stories, in this one as well, in all of the adaptations, he always takes off at some point, and then comes back rich.
Mm-hmm.
But rarely does it like actually tell you what happened. And this one actually tells you what happened, because it feels a bit of an audacity to just like shortcut that bit. Of literally his whole struggle was because it was like he was in a different social hierarchy than them, and he just leap jumps, so we leapfrogs over all of that struggle. He solves that, and now he's back for revenge and love, maybe sometimes depending on the version. And it's just like he actually has that like that mania in him. It's like leaning way more into the sort of gothic tale that this one was, with like the ghosts and everything and being haunted by stuff. It also does the creepy like skeleton obsession. In the book, it's like described once that he wants to lay with a dead corpse, and they also do that in the like the 2-part miniseries. They also do that, but like the way that like her bones are in there, but then it transitions to her as like a person, how he imagines it, and then back to reality with the skeleton. I think honestly, although the production value is so low, like it's so barren sometimes, it's just people in costumes, one setup camera, shitty lighting, and then you got Tom Hardy in there.
In the miniseries, right?
Yeah, in the miniseries. And that one also does the whole story. And I think it's because it like that probably is one of the more accurate depictions, like one screen to book. It also feels like more it's just someone who's read the book and now wants to adapt it, but has no inkling of like, actual like storytelling for movies or TV shows. And this one has like so much of its own identity. And I think what I haven't mentioned yet, the actor who tragically passed away like just a year after this at age 40, who plays Heathcliff equivalent in the story, Yuzaka Matsuda, I think really incorporates that like he's really good in this film is what I'm trying to say. I think he, because he is truly in the movie for like the whole time, right? I really go through with him through the motions of sort of just going more and more insane as the years go on.
Oh shit, I didn't realize he passed away a year after this, because he's in actually quite a few great movies. He's in Black Rain.
He is in Black Rain, and legend has it, or I think it's pretty much confirmed, that he got the cancer diagnosis while he was there, didn't do treatment because he wanted to star in Black Rain, and by the time it was done, it had progressed too far, and he actually passed away, like literally because he was in Black Rain.
Yeah, he's also in a few other movies that I own that I haven't seen yet. He's like in Killing Game. He's in The Most Dangerous Game. The Beast to Die. I actually own a few of those.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
great actor. He's really, really good in this.
Yeah.
It's
even
honestly,
in this one,
looking at all the versions of Wuthering Heights, I think his performance is one of the ones up there as like being the best. And I've seen now like 6 different versions of the story. And I think he's very much at the top, you know.
Let's talk really now about the 1988 version.
Yes.
Yeah, it's totally fine. You have the backdrop. I don't. I was gonna compare this movie to a movie you also seen. I was gonna mention Shadow of Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that movie or not?
Yeah. I don't know the time period. I think Shadow of Fire is
it was in the aftermath of World War II.
Yeah.
But you know that setting of being in that house, and you got, you know, the kid, you got the lady, and you got this man that is constantly barging in and wanting to be with her. Like, I got the same, like, I felt like that was inspired by Wuthering Heights, by this version, because man, is it bleak. I know I've said it a few times, but it's just so dark. It's so dark, and you got the equivalent of Heathcliff, which is called Onimaru in this one. Man, this guy is something else. The way that because let's start from the beginning. So you got the master of the house. He has a daughter. He saw a little kid, like very rough kid on the street, and he basically adopts him in, right?
Yeah.
And from then on, they both go up with each other, and then his daughter's brother wants him out of this house, and the master of the house basically says no. He's basically part of a family, and then the brother says, "Okay, farewell, bye," and then he's out of there. And then basically it's Onimaru and Kinu who are together. And I actually forgot something. The movie opens with Onimaru defending Kinu's grave, which I don't. Does that differ from the books? I'm gonna guess so.
Not in the book. Nothing of that is in the book. Anytime he has a sword in his hands, not in the book. I don't know. Very different.
Okay, wow.
Obviously, also the all army stuff and even the holy men stuff is like none of that is different. None of that is like anywhere close to the book. But I really like the locations in the novel. It's like the moors, and here it's like on this volcanic mountain that is just all like it looks so like. The look of it, the story is bleak, but also the way that this like land looks is so. Whenever we get a shot where like someone traverses from one point to the next, every time we're outside, it's like danger, 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 and something fucked up happens in these lands.
You know what? When they call it the Valley of the Dead, I believe it is the Valley of the Dead.
That is, There's a lot of like robbing, a lot of sexual abuse, murder, a lot of that stuff happening, like to an extent where that's also one of the issues with the novel. It's so dense with like how shit happens, and like shit happens to like a lot of characters. A lot of people die, and you sort of need to approach it with this like, I think being this Japanese framing of how upheld the social hierarchies and structures are. I think it is. We see it in to us it's maybe more of a different construct of how rigid these lines are that you never cross, of like the servant, and like it always feels like it's something that is bound to be broken, or like it's out of date. But it feels like, especially at that time in Japan, that like it cannot be broken. These are really hard lines. You that's why it feels so bleak as well, because like these are these inescapable paths of just sort of the lives that they cannot escape. Like every woman is sent off to, like, as soon as she gets her period, there you go, you become a priestess, you go away. And then when she doesn't go, and instead of that, like Onimaru goes to the city, what he gets is like, fame and power, and all she would get is like to be lost in history, to be like the same person over and over again.
Yeah.
But it's basically our only path. And in the book, really, he always resents her for marrying off, because in this it's always like to move up in a social structure for her as well, to secure her line base, or like and here it's different, because it is
like she just wants to stay home.
I think I think the female characters in the story are a bit underserved, are a bit underwritten, are a bit one note, are a bit annoying and complaining in a way that seems very basic, that doesn't really go into the depth of their person, which the different adaptations and the story is like very different usually. And I think one of the things that I didn't really like about this is the amount of times we are in that what's the room called, the
Forbidden
Room, and it's just like 3 women that get undressed in it, and it feels like,
it happens. It basically happens 3 times. It happens first time with Kinu, but there but the scene with Kinu, I like, I accept, I guess, because you wanted to say something.
No, it's the one that's the most consensual.
Yeah, it's the most consensual. Is it done out of love, or is it done out of something else? You don't really know. It's clear that later she's calling him a demon, like a man of a different nature.
Yeah.
And then you got the second time, which honestly, I'm gonna say it, I thought she was a gold digger. Cause the way she's walking to that house, like, I want to marry the Lord that's there. I want to be, and then she's absolutely not knowing what the hell she's walking into.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though, I guess little spoilers. I guess I have no clue how she committed suicide. I didn't see her tying that noose. The way that she just threw up her lint across that beam, and then it was like, bam, she's hanging. It's like, is that strong enough? I was like, really? And then the third time is with his daughter.
It's not his daughter. It's the daughter that Kino had with her cousin. Like the one,
Yeah, but they had sex in the Forbidden Room.
It
so
might be
doesn't
implied that that's his kid. It like, honestly, I keep bringing up the book so much, but the book doesn't have any sex, right? The book is very clean in the way that you might expect a book to be. For all of these like notions of showing them more physical are all implied. All of them, kid making happens in between the scenes. They're never described. I believe basically none of them, I think. And a lot of the versions start off with them, the 1992 version starts off with them hooking up. Honestly, the 2026 version, it's basically all they do. I mean, I've already talked about that film. But
yeah. Have you?
time. And in this, like, there's no passion, right? There's only sort of the role that you fulfill and the power you can
which is accurate for the time period. I feel like it's feudal Japan again, even in this period.
Yeah, at least the version of that time that we see on film, right? We never go, like, we rarely see anything else from that time period that isn't as rigid and like.
And we say these movies like dark, it's bleak, but man, it is. Whenever he goes to that coffin and like opens it the first time, seeing those worms, like totally not the woman that he once loved at all in there anymore, but still wanting to be there for her. I mean, man, even with the corpse, I will say, whenever the second time he opened that coffin and you see the skeleton and you just the hair is like perfect. Like, damn,
it's crazy. The decaying was crazy. The amount of time, like the time in between, was like perfect for everything to decay, but the bones and the hair.
Yeah. And I really like the violence. And I mean, I like the violence. I really like the way that he kills off those soldiers in the House of the West. Wait, the House of the West of the East. It's like one of the two.
Yeah, it's one of two. It's like, you know, it's a bit more confusing because it's literally Wuthering Heights in the original. That's the place where it takes place. So I don't know East and West.
But like the way that he kills off and the blood splatters in this movie is like very well done. Even the scenes where he's hitting someone, they are so well done. Like I rewinded after the movie just to see like how close are they, and they never hit the person. And I know like that is samurai cinema. You actually never hit anyone, but you do it perfectly. And like this movie just once again reaffirmed it. Like, man, these people are so on point with their cues and when to hit.
Bro, the stone throws, I was like, what are they throwing? That can't be real stones because there's so much. Like, that shit must hurt if that's an actual stone.
And then you got the final fight between the cousin and Onimaru, which add that ghosty, fantastical element to this movie that I thought I really like this adaptation of Wuthering Heights. I can't deny it. And no, I'm not just saying it because it's Asian, but it is so well followed through with with the tones going, with the period it is. The acting is really well done. I honestly cannot say many flaws about this movie. You probably can in terms of like adaptation. What could have
the
done
thing
better?
Is also, you know, with adaptations, it's always like, what do you want to emphasize? That's why I like, you know, the whole notion of putting it in quotation marks and the way that she's been talking about it, of like, you know, it's her own version. She doesn't want to sort of, you know, set up the expectation that it's a faithful one. I was like, any one of them is. Like, you can't adapt text to screen. That's always inherently what's happening. So it feels like whatever your focus is, like honestly, the miniseries is the one that stays the closest. I think this is the most notable one where it actually does something with it, because like you got to put it in the context of the time and place and culture and all of it for it to resonate. And I think some of the versions are really focused on having certain things very accurate, and then also because they stop when Catherine, you know, dies like in the middle of the movie, in the middle of the book. You get the sort of thing of like, you just wanted the romance part of like the oh, they couldn't be together, right? And that's exactly what this current version of Wuthering Heights does as well, which, you know, it also is taking away all of that sort of underlying actual like larger storytelling that is happening. It really is just basically a love story. And you can strip away all of the nuance, and that's why I actually enjoyed, you know, this new version of Wuthering Heights, because it didn't have the aspiration of like taking these things literally. I don't think you put it into quotation marks to do that, but people are going to be pissed off regardless. And I think here going so different and making it its own actually works in the benefit. Like it's more of like a samurai, like not the samurai, but like the shogun becomes important as like at the time. How do you rule a certain region? It's because you are appointed not by the emperor, who's a figurehead in Kyoto, but the one that's like, you know, in charge of the region through the shogun. So if you go there and specifically in fight, you know, prove your worth, you can be appointed a role that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten, and that's how you move up in social structure. And in the 1880s in England, like, you know, the other way is like, oh, he went over to the US and got his like, you know, fortune somehow there. Like, like that's how loosely we get it. And like that's what I liked about the miniseries, the 2-episode miniseries, because there's one scene where Tom Hardy says like, he's asked about like how he's made his fortune, and he says something along the lines of like basically like how every man does it, by like stepping on other people, like, or at the behest of like, you know, others, basically enriching yourself, and others can't enrich themselves, like basically like, you know, a bit of a criticism of like the capitalist structure.
Do you have anything more to say about this version, like the 1988 one?
It deservedly got like at the Japanese Academy Awards that they do. They awarded the supporting actress Eri Ishida an award, and also was nominated for lead. So that's interesting. To me, it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival. It didn't win any awards there, but it just goes to show again that, like, a lot of these films that are really good but go overlooked often premiere at festivals like this. And I'm glad that, like, we are revisiting it, because I doubt that many people who are like watching this new version go back all the way to 1988 and watch a version that is like so far from the original novel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I gotta say.
Where does you've seen six Wuthering Heights adaptations? How do you rank them, bro? I'm curious, because what I've seen from you've rated a lot of them the same.
Oh yeah.
So I'm wondering. By the way, I'm giving Wuthering Heights 1988 a 4 out of 5, or like an 8 out of 10.
The thing is, I'm not giving it a 4 out of 5. I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5, which I have that and 3 more movies that have 3.5 out of 5. So it's a bit unclear. To me, at the bottom, it's unfortunately, because I really like her filmmaking, the Andrea Arnold version. It's the only one that depicts Heathcliff
I was shocked at that.
As a person of color, and it's sort of he's called a gypsy. He's like in all of these versions, like that's sort of implied that like what derogatory term they're using, and also he stands out really immediately, and that's the one where. Yes, she does that. Everything else is so bleak in a really boring way, and it really doesn't work if you haven't read the book. It just gives you no context, and it's really, really hard to sit through. As always, whenever she captures like birds and animals, it's pretty good, but there's also a bunch of like killing of live animals, which I'm like a no-go for me. So yeah, it's at the bottom. I gave that one like what did I give it? A 2 or a 2.5 out of 5?
I think a 2, yeah. So that's number 6. Number 5.
1992 version with Juliette Binoche, who plays both Catherine and Kathy, like her younger self. Like, one of the shortcomings is when they don't recast any of the roles for the younger parts, and it's just so fucking jarring, especially in a role that spans so much time. Where it's supposed to be, like 19 through a lot of this, and then it does like an 18-year time jump at one point, and they just all look the same. It's in all of the versions. Like Tom Hardy doesn't look older in like the miniseries version as well. His hair is just a bit more ragged. So that's next up, the 1992 version, which is the only other movie version who does the full story. A lot of them open with the context of like Nellie as this caretaker, welcoming a stranger in, basically recounting the whole story of this until we get back to that. Like it's the like sort of the narrating, the narrational structure of it is like the recount of like this housemaid who's been along for it the whole time. So like in the book, it's also implied that there might be like some bias and unreliable storyteller thing, the way that she depicts the story. And then it usually ends with like Heathcliff, like seeing her ghost and then dying in a way. But that's the version next up that is a bit odd, but it actually gives you the full story. And I believe it also gives you, because like the next generation is like 3 different kids. It's the one that Isabella and Heathcliff have. It's the one that Edgar and Catherine have, and it's the one that Hindley, his brother, and his wife, whose name I forget, have. And like there's an entanglement of like it's that, like, because oh my god, the story focused so much on like the second generation trauma and how it's just like circular in the way that like the one who was in power first then twisted around like the love story. It's honestly, the book is really good. If you did like a faithful adaptation, you probably have to do a miniseries that is longer. It goes to show with like the amount of 7 out of 10s, I don't think we have gotten a great adaptation of this story yet, and I don't know if we'll ever get one, because there's been more than enough. But coming in at the lowest rank of my 7 out of 10 is the most recent version of Wuthering Heights, because it is just sort of 2 hot people falling in love with each other, and that's fine. That's good entertainment. That's not a slight at the movie, but it's not really much more than that. It's very noteworthy in the costume design, the production design, the cinematography. Actually, those first 2 more than the cinematography. I wouldn't even be surprised if that gets an Oscar nomination. I feel like it would be, at this point, from what I've seen and what I expect to see this year, probably worthy. It's really well made. Like, they literally changed the Lintons in the story to be fabric makers, so they can have like the costumes and justify
Yeah.
it's really funny. And then next up, I got the William Wyler one from 1939. That one is like,
Tell me about that one.
really,
That's the OG.
that's the
right?
OG. Yeah, that is the OG. I believe. I believe so. Maybe I don't know if this story was ever adapted on the stage. I feel like it could have gotten that, but then movie version, probably this is the earliest one. It's solid. I mean, it's a William Wyler movie. It's very, but it's also very strict in how it's going about telling the story. It is very much showing Heathcliff as this hero character as well, like this anti-hero type guy, and it is fully romanticizing the whole thing. Like, it also ends with Catherine dying and like him saying haunt me. Like, a lot of these recurring things is like the conversation that Catherine has with Nellie about like leaving. Obviously that's the part that's left out of the 1988 version, where he overhears it, and that's his catalyst for leaving and then returning, is like because he didn't get the context that she actually loves him. Some versions also changed that, where it was like apparent that they say I love you to each other. It really is different every time, but that one was just like a bit over romantic, and I didn't really connect with it on any level. I feel like there was more to explore, but it felt very much like a 1930s, early 40s version of this that is, very straightforward, but doesn't hold like a ton of substance. And then for me, second up, which, the one we just discussed was my favorite, but I think the miniseries, the 2-episode miniseries, although it looks like shit, it is actually such a close adaptations of the overall story and feeling of it, that I think that one holds the deepest amount of value. And just a tidbit, that the Catherine, the actress who plays Catherine, Charlotte Riley, right? She's married in real life to Tom Hardy, and they met on this set and are together to this day. And I think that's just like such a interesting, part of the story that is about love, so much about like love persisting, and they can't get it, but in real life they're actually together. But if I were to recommend anyone who's about to watch the 2026 version and then disappointed by it, who's also read the book, I think with the 2009 version, you're way better served than the one from 1992. And all of the other versions do cut short of a lot of the context that, I think the Andrea Arnold version is probably the other like most bleakest, that gets the closest to the feeling of that time period, because it's just all miserable. Everyone is miserable. It's just varying degrees, and it's not as like a lot of these versions show these upper class people of having so much more. But I think it's just like different degrees of shit how your life is.
Can I ask you? Those videos of when they ask players. So for example, I'll pick tennis because that's the best example. Often down they'll ask the current tennis players like, so if you would choose like the forehand, someone's backhand, someone's serve, like what would you choose? So you want to create your perfect, or at least your best Wuthering Heights adaptation, but you can pull the elements from all the different adaptations you've seen so far. What would you pull from each one? I think that's a really, really good question.
It's good, but it's really hard to answer. I think the sort of critique it has at the feeling, of the story. I think the 1988 version is something that's really interesting in how it goes about how bleak it is, right? But I would pair that with how accurate the depiction is and how it looks. The looks also from the 1988 version. How close it stays to the story, I think you can say that in the 2009 version, that's probably the best. When it comes to the performances, I quite like Ralph Fiennes in the 1992 version. I don't really like Juliette Binoche, but maybe it's just tainted because at one point later on she plays own daughter, but like with weird ass like contact lenses. I think time accuracy would be Andrea Arnold, so a bit of like a mesh between that and the 1988 version, and in the miniseries, because I feel like for the runtime you do need at least 2.5 to 3 hours to tell the story. I really like how crazy Fennell's version looks, but that's just because maybe it has a bit of money behind it.
You can just steal the cinematographer if you want. You can just say, I want Dan Lawson to shoot it.
Because it's like, it's hard because you say, I think it fundamentally doesn't work. I think actually, no, your question is bad, Kevin. I've decided. Because, sorry.
I was so invested in the way you were,
I'm trying to piece it together, but they don't fit together, and that's sort of the point. It's really hard to say.
Okay, well, hey, you bring up some things of your own.
Okay,
hey,
I'm sorry. I felt like I was manifest
your
already.
version.
Maybe what I could say, what's the best Heathcliff? What's the best Catherine depiction? Right? Maybe that makes more sense of like pulling those together in a movie. I think my favorite Heathcliff probably. Oh God, Jacob Elordi's so fucking attractive. It doesn't really fit the mold.
Just say Ray Fiennes. It's fine.
It's Ray Fiennes, yeah. And
he's fine.
Then my favorite Catherine is tough. I think all the Nellies are quite disappointing from what they actually are like in the book. You know what?
Who's the best Nellie?
I'll say Jacob Elordi is my favorite Heathcliff. People are gonna have
damn.
Yeah, I don't know. A bit of a mashup between the miniseries 2009, 1988. Sprinkle in a bit of that stuff from the Andrea Arnold one that was a good intention of like the time, and I think just like sort of the pacing and the editing of the William Wyler one was actually really good, and then maybe the look and the money that they had to put into this from the most recent 2026.
That's it. Well done. Well done, bro.
I have spoken. I have read so much. And honestly, I do not regret a second of watching these 6 movies, reading this whole book, and I will continue to do this in the future. Like I'm on the back half of Project Hail Mary. I'm about to start Frankenstein, so we can talk about that in The Bride. It's really enjoyable to be looking at these movies even deeper,
Maybe next time just space them out a bit more. Like I would go crazy if I watched the same version in a week.
I was so tempted to basically watch them all back to back and then make a joke about it on social media of like, someone asking me, what have you been watching? I was like, Wuthering Heights. And someone says like, what else? And I was like, Wuthering Heights. I was like, no, what else? Wuthering Heights? No, actually tell me, what have you been watching? Wuthering Heights. And then
6 times.
I've already overextended that bit already, but I've watched 2 more movies called Wuthering Heights. It is pretty crazy.
It's quite funny because earlier I was just typing Wuthering Heights on Letterboxd, and I was just scrolling down to see how many there were, and it just kept going.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, I can go on page 2.
Like 25 or something, or 22, yeah.
It's crazy.
Crazy. Anyways, that wraps it up for today. Next week, we're going to talk about the much anticipated Oscar-nominated Marty Supreme. And it's going to be exciting. It's out on VOD, on Premium VOD, on 4K as well. So if you want to watch it and it's already been, out of your theaters, then you can go see it there. And a lot of places, including Belgium and Switzerland, it's coming out next week in theaters. So you can catch it there, if you're European. And we'll have a full-on spoiler review for that, as well as this thing on.
I'm totally already not getting spoiled by the internet, since it's already gone on VOD.
Yeah. Well, it's your mistake, because you could have watched it, don't support theaters, don't go to the cinema, is what you could have done.
Excuse me, I'll support my movies.
This guy is like, oh my God, I love the cinema. It's something that we should preserve, he says.
Excuse me, you have literally Timothée Chalamet saying like, oh, I'm giving everything into cinema. Yeah. I'm going to the cinema to watch this shit, dude.
Exactly. So you can't
By the way,
escape
can
it,
I just
quickly
say, like, I love it when people say like, oh, that actress went on that French show with incredible lighting. You know what I'm referring to?
Yeah.
So, he said that on that show. I find it so fucking funny that they referred to it. What else are we watching next week?
Well, I've already seen it. I didn't talk about it this week, but Is This Thing On is out on VOD as well. So we'll be talking about that.
Is this thing on?
Oh God, that was such a pain. For a second, I was like, wait, I went from podcast brain to technical brain for a second. I was like, God, fuck you, man. I was so far into this recording, I wasn't questioning it. I was earnest, like, oh, he actually needs help with something. Yes, it is on, Kevin. And we'll be back on this podcast to talk about that, as well as next up on Johnny Toe lineup. we've waited for this. You know, we were eager to continue Johnny Toe year. It's the year of Johnny Toe in 2026. But we wanted to tie it into like actual, you know, a sort of holiday where this fits. So what are we reviewing next?
Hey, Tuesday, it's Chinese New Year. So a very famous Chinese New Year movie is Fat Choi Spirit, directed by Johnny To. So we are watching that up next. Funnily enough, with the Chinese New Year, the animal this year is like a horse, I believe. And there was like a production company that was like creating all these horse plushies. They wanted to put a smile on it, but they put the smile upside down, so it was a frown. And apparently that got very popular, and many people started buying the horse with a frown for Chinese New Year because it represented the sentiment among the Chinese people, with I guess the society there. But hey, let's lift those spirits up with Fat Choi Spirit next week.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to it. I got no clue what this movie is. I know it's
it's your first comedy from him, which I'm looking forward to because you've seen most of his greatest movies in the crime genre, in the thriller genre.
Yeah.
So now you're getting a comedy. I'm looking forward to how you'll respond to that.
And I've seen someone like Takeshi Kitano be able to, you know, mesh these sort of genres together in a really satisfying way. And you've talked about like Johnny Toe in a very similar way-ish of how he's like, you know, able to go from genre to genre. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So if you want any help finding that movie of where you can watch it, then join our Discord. Reminder for that. We can help you find it because it might be very different for you locally in places. But we are locked and loaded, ready to watch this movie and discuss it in detail on next week's World Cinema Spotlight. But that's it for the end of this week. There's nothing else to say other than it's time to stop it and cut.
And wrap. Let's wrap. Let's go for lunch.
Martini shot.
Why do you have a bottle of Siracha on your desk? Why do you have a full ass bottle of Siracha on your desk?
Because I was putting it on my sandwich earlier that I was eating. Why would I not?
Thank
the question
God.
is, why would I not? I'm sorry. Why would I not have a full bottle of Sriracha on my desk?
I don't know. I was like, just very weirded out that you just grabbed it like it was nothing. Like, it's a regular thing on your... Oh, yeah, please do put it in your mouth, yeah. I dare you. You better do it.
I'm friends with the monster inside of this
Alright, now I'm stopping recording. God damn it.